You're in the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
The Paracast is brought to you by Audible.com, the internet's leading provider of audiobooks with more than 100,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature, including fiction, nonfiction, and periodicals. For a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/Paracast. So in the past couple of weeks, Chris and I have been ragging on various UFO conventions where they hire some zany people to be the speakers, and they kind of put the more responsible speakers aside, and at least if the evidence of the past conference of the International UFO Conference is any indication, well, the people don't care for that sort of thing.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. There's plenty of true believers out there that just will lap up any applesauce that you put in front of them if it conforms to their pre-programmed sort of front-loaded reality views. So, no, I'm sure there were a lot of people that thought it was the greatest thing that they ever experienced since the invention of sliced bread. But for people that are a bit more up to speed, a little bit more skeptical and discerning, have a little bit more of, I think, an understanding of the complexities and how complicated this whole subject is, I think they were a little disappointed. But again, Open Minds puts on a really good event. They spare no expense on the location, and I just wish that they'd try to take the high road when it comes to the quality of the speakers. Again, I really did. Thought the inclusion of Rosemary Guiley was a real good one. Of course, Antonio is always just a pleasure to listen to. He's an amazing historian.
He's one of the, I guess, undiscovered treasures in the UFO field. A lot of people don't hear of him except for that magazine, the stuff he did with Tim Beckley and his appearances on the Paracast. Right. He's one of those people who doesn't really get his due.
Yeah, and Rosemary Guiley, too. She doesn't go around promoting herself. She's very low profile. She's not in it for ego purposes. It's a career for her. I mean, she is definitely a professional writer. But talk about a woman who really knows how to go out in the field, interact with people, and then come back and present that information in either book or conference form. There were enough of those types of guests. Of course, the first appearance of the Chilean general, who's the head of the UFO desk down there in Chile. I mean, there were some bright spots, but I mean, I can't really. I can't complain too loudly. I mean, we won a couple of EV awards, so I should be extolling their virtues. But, last year at least there were some real cutting-edge presenters. There were more cutting-edge presenters than not. This year it was the other way around.
Well, in the end, you wonder here the image of the UFO field. I think that's the biggest thing. It's not that someone who sponsors a UFO conference is not entitled to earn back their investment and make a few dollars for their work. No one's going to begrudge that. These are not non-profit corporations. And even a non-profit corporation, they've got expenses, they've got salaries, they've got to fly in all these presenters. Right. They have to pay for hotel rooms. It's not a cheap thing to do. No. And take it from me, as you know, Chris, I did this once years ago. I only took a $100 bath. Today, at today's exchange rates, maybe it would be a $200 or $300 bath.
Yeah.
But after
Stephen
work,
Bassett, how he's done on the X conferences over the years.
Yeah, I gather he's taken a big loss on those things.
Oh, big time. Yeah, thousands and thousands of dollars.
So how has he survived? Does he have a day job?
I don't know. Maybe we should ask his handlers.
This is something we speculated upon some years back on the Paracast when we had one, I guess, unfortunate encounter with Steve Bassett where he kind of went off on us when we challenged him about putting speakers on the podium who were not vetted because maybe they would drag a crowd in.
Well, and the same thing, I think, with Stephen Greer. Of course, the majority of his disclosure witnesses were very, very believable, and they had track records. But then salted in there were a few that you just had to scratch your head and go, Stephen, what were you thinking getting these people up there? So, I mean, it's the Wild West. This is a proto-scientific field. There's no standards. There's no, anybody can just hang themselves out there and call themselves an expert and go around and gather anonymous witnesses and keep contributing to the ever-growing myth that surrounds this whole field. And it's wrought with disinformation. It's wrought with misinformation. And you just have to listen to shows like the Paracast to help fine-tune and hone your BS meter and, and just, kind of do your research. I keep saying that. I sound like a broken record, I know, but I know everybody doesn't have the time or the inclination to do that. They just want to believe. So, just be careful of that true believer Kool-Aid that circulates out there.
Right, and the other problem is here, you wonder here, you have all these disparate viewpoints. You have people who are going on those lecture tours, they're appearing on radio and TV, and they don't have anything to offer other than some fanciful story. And, of course, the conspiracy theorists amongst you will say, hey, maybe they're government plants. I think it's just people looking for 15 minutes of fame, and this is the reality show of another color. Right now, reality shows are big.
Yeah, or they think they're going to make $1 million writing a book on UFOs or something when we're losing readers left and right every day. So
I know that one of my favorite books of all time was Shockingly Close to the Truth, which was kind of a semi-autobiographical book co-authored by Jim Moseley, predominantly Jim with the late Carl Frock. And the thing about this book is that I know the numbers, and I won't reveal them. It's, as I say, it's Jim's business, his co-author's business, not anyone else's. The numbers were pathetic. I used to write books on how to use the Apple iMac, and I'd make more money from that book than from a UFO book. There's a lot more
people that use iMacs and will buy a UFO book.
Well, now, of course, Apple owns the planet.
Yeah.
We understand now that Apple is bigger than Poland.
Company in the world, 2 years running now.
That's right.
What do you think of that new little iPad? That looks pretty hot.
We have a discussion of that on, of course, the Tech Night Owl Live. But the most interesting thing about it is that you have this display with over 3 million pixels. This is this Retina display. It's actually 4 times. The figures are doubled. Therefore, you multiply them by each other. You get 4 times the resolution of the current model. And we had one of our readers over at the technightowl.com look at the numbers for other people selling displays with 3.1 million pixels. And he found figures like $2,000.
Right.
Now, Apple sells the new iPad, or the iPad 3, whatever you want to call it, for $499 up. So the basic model is $499. And you have this display. It's the same price as last year's model with a display of 1/4 the pixels. Right. Also $499. They did a teardown, and they estimated Apple is paying $70 for each one of those displays. And you have to think here, does Apple have some kind of alien technology? Maybe the technology that we recovered from Roswell was secreted into the hands of Steve Jobs back in the 1970s when Apple was first founded. And over the years, they've tried to reverse engineer that technology, and Apple has now funneled it out to their suppliers because it's going to take a long time for any other company to build a display for a tablet computer with over 3 million pixels in it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, they could do it. They got the oomph. They got the juice.
Well, they better have good production because in 2 days they sold out their online allocation. And people are talking about maybe 4 or 5 million copies the first month, maybe 50 million for the year.
Oh, man. I should have jumped into Apple stock back in the 80s.
Oh, if I bought Apple stock at $10 a share. And I was a journalist, I was trying to be honest, forthright, trying to be responsible to my profession. So I never bought stock in the companies I covered. What a mistake. No mistake today, my friend Curt Sutherly is joining us. And Curt sent me a letter several weeks ago, and it says, one person we haven't talked about, we talk about the Maury Island case, real or fanciful. But we don't talk about one of the people who was involved in the investigation, and that is possibly the original UFO pioneer himself, which was Kenneth Arnold.
Yeah.
The legend, 9 disc-shaped objects over Mount Rainier in the state of Washington, near your stamping grounds, Chris. And we don't talk about him very much, but if he didn't report that sighting, if the media didn't pick him up on it and say flying saucers, where would UFO research be today? We'll talk about Kenneth Arnold, Maury Island, and more with Curt Sutherly coming up next on
the Paracast.
As you know, the Paracast is brought to you by Audible.com, the Internet's leading provider of audiobooks with more than 100,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature, featuring audio versions of many New York Times bestsellers. For our listeners, Audible is offering a free audiobook to give you a chance to try out their service, such as Steve Jobs, the best-selling authorized biography from Walter Isaacson. For that free audiobook, go to audiblepodcast.com/Paracast. That's audiblepodcast.com/Paracast. You know, we develop trust in the people we know, but we don't really know someone we can see. That's why I recommend GoToMeeting with HD Faces. It's a simple online meeting service. It's GoToMeeting by Citrix. All it takes is a webcam and a click to instantly collaborate. You can start hosting your own face-to-face online meetings today with GoToMeeting. You can try it free for 30 days. Visit GoToMeeting.com, click the Try It Free button, and use the promo code PODCAST.
Digestive health is the key to wellness and elimination of toxins. That bears repeating. Digestive health is the key to wellness and elimination of toxins. And Pro EM1 Daily Probiotic Cleanse is the key to digestive health. Pro EM1 is a powerful liquid probiotic, strong enough to cleanse, gentle enough to use every day. Pro EM1 is dairy, wheat, and soy-free, contains all natural and certified organic ingredients, contains no preservatives or animal products, supports a healthy digestive and immune system, supports weight loss, improves absorption of food nutrients, aids in controlling yeast infections, is never freeze-dried, and uses 3 groups of live, viable, beneficial microbes to cleanse and remove toxins. Order Pro EM1 Daily Probiotic Cleanse at Teraganix.com, spelled Teraganix.com, Teraganix.com, or call toll-free 866-369-3678. That's 866-369-3678. Pro EM1, the raw probiotic.
We all know that Berkey water purification systems are the most trusted name in water filtration. As an authorized Berkey dealer for over 6 years and serving thousands of satisfied customers, the Berkey Guy offers amazing specials for Berkey water filtration systems. The Berkey Light systems include a set of self-sterilizing and recleanable black purification elements that purify water by removing chlorine, pathogenic bacteria, cysts, and parasites to non-detectable levels and remove harmful chemicals such as herbicides and pesticides. Order the Berkey Light system today, complete with 2 black Berkey elements for only $231, and the Berkey Guy will ship your order free of charge. With the purchase of a Berkey Light, the Berkey Guy is also offering a set of fluoride and arsenic filters for only $39.99. That's over 30% off the retail price. Call the Berkey Guy at 1-877-886-3653. That's 1-877-886-3653. Or order online at GoBerkey.com. That's GoBerkey.com today.
If you owe money to the IRS, you can't make the problem go away by yourself. But with the help of Dan Pilla, you can get your problem solved once and for all.
Hi, I'm Dan Pilla. For 30 years, I've helped thousands of people solve their tax debt problem, and I can help you solve yours too. We take a very simple but proven 3-step approach to solving your problem. First, we stabilize IRS collection actions so you don't have to worry about the IRS seizing your bank account or paycheck. Next, we build a comprehensive plan to get your tax debt reduced to the fullest extent possible, sometimes even completely eliminated. And finally, we work with you every step of the way to get your problem solved once and for all. Call us for a free consultation. Call 1-800-346-6829. We'll work together to get your problem solved, guaranteed.
Dan Pilla has been protecting taxpayers from the IRS for 3 decades, and he can help you too. Call us today at 800-346-6829. That's 800-34-NO-TAX.
Hi, this is Ted Phillips, listening to the Paracast, and it's as good as it gets, believe me.
My old friend Curt Sutherly has been investigating UFOs for many years, dating back, I guess, to the 70s. And I, as an older person, have been around the field for quite a bit of years myself. But Curt, as a reporter, a real reporter, has done a lot of the legwork that's required in investigating these things, not just sitting back and reading books, but calling people, going on the scene, et cetera, et cetera. Curt, welcome back to the Paracast.
No, it's good to be back, Gene.
I wanted to ask you about the topic of our discussion. We hear the legend. A businessman sees 9 disc-shaped objects, June 24th, 1947. His name is Kenneth Arnold. And we hear about that, we think about the impact, but we don't know too much about the man or maybe his connection to the Maury Island mystery. Tell us, who was Kenneth Arnold?
Well, Kenneth Arnold was, at the time of his, I guess you would say, infamous June 24, 1947 sighting, he was 28 years old. He was 28 years old in June 24, 1947, which was the day that he made his famous sighting of 9 flying objects in the vicinity of Mount Rainier in Washington State. And I guess most of your listeners have probably heard a little bit about Arnold, but they probably don't know a lot about the man himself. He was your prototypical American patriot. He was, as a youngster, he had been an Eagle Boy Scout. He was an all-state football player, and I guess he had intentions of going pro when he got older, and there was some kind of a knee injury, so that prevented that. He was a world-class swimmer and board diver. Essentially, he was almost Olympic level. He was an aircraft pilot. He had a private pilot's license. He was a deputy sheriff out in the state of Idaho. He oftentimes flew prisoners to holding facilities and to different incarceration areas. Oh, geez, well, he did so many things. I mean, he was professionally he was the seller. He was a salesman for what am I trying to think of? Fire control equipment. And you have to excuse me. Some of this, I'm dredging some of this up from memory. It's been quite a long time since I've actually written about any of this. But he was just an all-around great guy, and I was fortunate. I was able to actually get a short telephone interview with the man about his experiences, both insofar as his sighting and later events that occurred, which in Tacoma, Washington, events that are very much like something out of the X-Files. They're just, I'm not sure what direction do you want to take this in. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with Kenneth Arnold's actual sighting, because that's where the word flying saucers came from. But as I recall, the actual objects he saw weren't saucers. Well,
apparently the lead object was different. The lead object was more of a crescent shape or a flying wing shape. The other objects apparently were disc-like. It was the fact that the lead object was different was something he kind of held back from the media for a long period of time. He didn't really just talk about that. But essentially the sighting occurred when he was on one of his business trips. He was heading for, I believe, Cohollis, Washington State, and he was flying his Call Air A-2 aircraft, which was a small single-engine aircraft. And he decided to divert from his flight path to look for a crash of a C-46 Marine transport.
So ever the hero here, he's just trying to do something good.
Well, he was also part of a search and rescue team of flyers. He knew the area. He knew the area around Mount Rainier and the mountains in and around that area like the back of his hand. So he decided he had a little extra time. He thought, well, the crash had actually occurred the previous year. There were, I believe, if I recall correctly, that I think there were 8 Marine transports that were. They were caught up in a heavy snowstorm. One of them went down and disappeared, and it was carrying quite a number of Marines on board. The military conducted a search for about 2 weeks. They gave it up. The survivors of the missing people put a reward up. I think they put up $5,000, and that was continuing the following summer. And Arnold, he really wasn't looking for the reward. Again, you're right, he was just trying to do a good deed. He thought, well, I'll swing around and see if I can spot this wreckage someplace. He searched for a while. He didn't see anything. He started back on his flight path. And at that point, something flashed off the cockpit of his aircraft. It was like a reflection from the sunlight. And it caught his attention. Then he saw another flash, and when he looked up ahead, he figured about 23, 24 miles in front of him, in the vicinity of Mount Rainier, he saw these objects moving in single file, or what they called echelon formation, and they were just sweeping in and out among the peaks. And as they passed behind a sub-peak of Mount Rainier, he knew the distance, and he also knew the distance between the various peaks, so he was able to calculate roughly the speed they were traveling at. And the speed was incredible. He estimated, and he actually downplayed the estimated speed for the sake of accuracy, but he figured it was probably between 1,200 and 1,600 miles per hour. Now, later that year, in October of 1947, Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier in the Bell X-1 rocket plane. That was the fastest any man had ever flown at that time, and he was only traveling at 700 miles an hour. So obviously these objects, if Arnold's estimation of their speed was correct, were flying in great excess, or how am I going to say this, in tremendously faster than anything we had flown before. And he had no idea what this was. He saw these objects. They startled him. He, being a professional pilot, being very careful, he checked the surrounding area. The only other aircraft within the vicinity was an airliner, I believe, that was again also to his port side or left side, and that was trailing him by about 7 or 8 miles. But there was nothing else around. Now, this kind of aircraft, did it have instrumentation or what? No, he had limited instrumentation. It was a small single-engine aircraft. He was pretty much a seat-of-the-pants flyer. I mean, you're talking about an era where we didn't have a lot of radio electronics. I mean, he had, I don't tell you the truth, I don't think he had a radio on the aircraft. He simply flew by compass headings, by his observation of the ground. So he couldn't call the control tower and say, we've got a problem. No, he wasn't able to contact anybody and let them know that there was something out there. He just continued on to his next destination. He landed and immediately started telling a number of the people at the airport what he had experienced. And he got all sorts of reactions. He was ridiculed by some. Other people were saying, well, it's probably one of those rockets that they're testing, or maybe it's something the Russians have. And nobody really knew. Anyway, he continued on after he refueled. He continued on to his final destination, and he ended up talking to, I believe, a reporter at the East Oregonian newspaper, and they did a brief interview. The reporter took a statement from Arnold, sent out 2 or 3 paragraphs. Now, how long was this after the sighting? At what point did we first learn that this happened? And I'll get the answer in a moment. We have Curt Sutherly joining Gene and Chris. You're in Paracast.
Are you tired of searching for great talk radio?
Something more important.
Search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
If you want to get your website online and you need reliable service, first-class service at the lowest possible price, there's only one place to go. Well, DreamHost has a special promotion with our show where they'll offer you unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, one-click web apps such as WordPress, 24/7 support. You can save over $55. You want to know how? Go to dreamhost.com/radio, dreamhost.com/radio.
Fate Magazine provides true reports of the strange and unknown. Keep up with the latest on angels and miracles, psychic phenomena, ghosts, UFOs, life after death, and much, much more. To receive your free issue of Fate Magazine, call now at 1-800-728-2730 or visit their website at www.fatemag.com. That's 1-800-728-2730. What are you waiting for? Your fate awaits.
Have you ever seen a U.S. postage stamp featuring Abraham Lincoln, Ben Franklin, or George Washington? If you're into stamp collecting, you know it's a fun, affordable hobby. America's leading stamp dealer is the Mystic Stamp Company, and they want you to have their free 140-page color catalog. Go to MysticStampAd.com, the website of the Mystic Stamp Company, serving stamp collectors since 1923. Mystic Stamp is well known in the industry for its experience, superior customer service, and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Go to MYSTICStamp.com USAD.com to request your free 140-page U.S. stamp color catalog packed with collecting tips, special offers, color photos, and over 4,600 available stamps. Call 800-433-7811 or go to MysticStampAd.com. That's 800-433-7811 and ask for your free U.S. stamp catalog or MysticStampAd.com. Mystic Stamp Company, America's leading stamp dealer.
Are you having trouble paying your mortgage? Maybe your mortgage loan is upside down or in foreclosure. Maybe the bank already foreclosed on you. Don't sit around being a victim of bank fraud. Fight back. We have the tools to help you fight back. Here's how. Go to InspectorAudit.com and click on the GCN radio special. Order a summary audit. Find the real truth about your loan.
Maybe like me, you'll find your bank loan was paid off already. Maybe, like me, you'll find your bank defrauded you at the closing. And maybe, like me, you will go after them.
Did you know 78% of home loans in the last 10 years violated consumer credit laws? We should not let the banks get away with this fraud. Go to InspectorAudit.com and click on the GCN radio special. Order a summary audit today and find the truth about your mortgage loan. That's InspectorAudit.com or call 855-373-4948. That's 1-855-373-4948.
That's what it sounds like when a burglar kicks in the door of a dark house that looks like no one is home. Don't let your home be the next target. Make it look like someone is home watching television with Fake TV. Fake TV is a small electronic device that makes the same light as a real television. So from outside, it looks like someone is home watching TV. Fake TV plugs in just like a lamp on a timer, but is far more convincing to burglars. Fake TV deters burglars, costs far less than an alarm, and is highly recommended by numerous police departments. Use it anytime you're away from home. To order your Fake TV for only $34.95, go to faketv.com. or call 1-877-5-FAKE-TV. Each additional Fake TV is only $29.95, so get one for you and one for a loved one for safety, security, and peace of mind for both of you. Call 877-5-FAKE-TV or go to faketv.com. faketv.com, the burglar deterrent.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And if you'd like to catch up on past episodes, we have hundreds of shows for you to download, direct from theparacast.com. That's theparacast.com. Or check us out at iTunes.
With Gene and Chris in the Paracast, and Chris, by the way, is on the phone today because his copy of Skype is non-functional. This all happened since Microsoft acquired Skype. It's their fault, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay, everything is Microsoft's fault. Remember that. I guess in a few years it'll be Apple's fault, but still time for Microsoft's fault. Okay, Curt Sutherly is talking to us about Kenneth Arnold, the guy whose sighting had created what? A legend we don't know. Okay, I was going to ask you, Curt, before we broke, how long did it take from the time Arnold had the sighting until we learned about it in the press?
It was about a day went by. He when he landed after the sighting, his first landing, that was in at the, I believe it's pronounced the Yakima Airport in the area of Boise. That's where he told a number of people that he had experienced something, he had witnessed something, and he was ridiculed by some, and others basically said, well, it was something the government was testing. Anyway, the next day he landed in Pendleton, Oregon, and that's where he talked to a reporter named Bill Baquette, and he was a reporter for the Pendleton East Oregonian, and he told Pendleton his story, or briefly kind of summarized it. Pendleton sent out a short story on this, and I think it went out over the Associated Press, and or maybe it was UPI at the time, United Press International. And anyway, Pendleton went off to lunch, didn't really think a whole lot about it. He got back, and the place was in bedlam. I mean, he was getting calls from all over the place. The newspaper was being inundated with phone calls about more on this flying saucer story, as it kind of came to be known.
At what point did the name Flying Saucers become public? With the initial report or what?
Yeah, he at one point Arnold made a comment in describing the objects. He said that they moved through the air, kind of like saucers skipping over the water, and that was sort of reinterpreted as flying saucer, and it obviously became legendary. And Arnold had no intention of coining that phrase. It was just the way he described it, because they had been moving in this echelon formation, just sort of bobbing through the air, and they were obviously powered or flew in a fashion unlike any aircraft that he knew about or that he had heard of to that point, or that anybody else to that point had ever heard about. In fact, the idea that this could have been a product of Russian or Soviet Union science or any other terrestrial science at that time was kind of ludicrous, but they didn't know what to think. Everybody that heard about this, and there were other sightings too at the time. In fact, maybe I should touch on that a bit.
Yeah, let's talk about what happened around it. But did the initial flurry of reports all surround Kenneth Arnold and flying saucers? Was it also about other reports?
His was the trigger. His was the first that really made headlines. And Arnold's story and his photo was splashed all over newspapers all over the country. But in subsequent days, this was, of course, that was June 24. A couple of weeks later, another individual, an airline pilot named Emil Smith, E.J. Smith, or I believe in some accounts his middle initial is H. Smith and his co-pilot and some passengers on an airliner that he was flying spotted a formation of objects that he described as being very similar to what Arnold had seen. In fact, this was July 4th of 1947. And Arnold and Smith later actually met. They went to a newspaper office to look at a photograph of a strange flying disc that had been taken by a U.S. Coast Guardsman. And the paper had published a photo, and they wanted to see an original copy of it. Arnold went there, and he was introduced to Smith, who was there, maybe not coincidentally.
Now, Curt, excuse me for interrupting, but was this a Coast Guard report from the Puget Sound area?
No, this was something different. I believe this was a Coast Guardman who happened to be driving on a highway, and he saw something and took a photo of it. The details of the photo aren't, or that particular episode aren't recounted very clearly in most reports, simply because it's almost an afterthought in the annals of what was occurring at that time.
Well, I also seem to remember that there was quite a wave of sightings that occurred over the next week, 10 days prior to the Roswell event, where I think in Idaho, Oregon, Washington, that whole Pacific Northwest area, even down the coastal ways, had quite a flurry of reports, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And there were the reports all over the place, and it's a matter of speculation as to whether the reports were triggered by Arnold's sighting. In many cases, many of them maybe being made up, or whether it was simply that people were suddenly literally watching the skies and taking notice to things that they wouldn't have noticed before. But you're absolutely correct. I mean, there was a whole wave, a whole flurry of sightings, actually continued on pretty much through the rest of that summer.
Now, I know it's interesting here. The supposed official Air Force explanation for Arnold's sighting is that was a mirage. Where'd they get that from?
Wow, that's something I had never heard before.
That's according to the Wikipedia report on Arnold. They claim that's what the Air Force said, which was disputed, and they mentioned by people like Jerry Clark, who said, obviously, it could not have been a mirage. And certainly you think an experienced pilot, someone who is really a seat-of-the-pants kind of guy, he's not inundated with all this instrumentation as you have airline pilots today. You know, today the plane can almost fly itself. Then you had to do all the work yourself.
Well, the military was they did talk to Arnold to investigate his account. It was Captain Brown and Lieutenant Davidson, I believe, were the names of the two men. They were with Army A2 Intelligence, and they visited Arnold at his home after some of the uproar had died down. And Arnold, up to that point, he was being inundated with mail. He received tons of letters from all over the country from people that wanted information about this sighting or that had sightings of their own. Some of the letters were crank. Some of them were from people that were genuinely mystified by what was going on. And these two officers showed up. They interviewed Arnold, very polite, took him very seriously. And, of course, at the time, there was some concern about national security. I mean, was this something the Russians had? Nobody knew. So
were these the same two officers that were there to investigate the Harold Dahl and Fred Crispin claim of the Maury Island?
Yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves a bit, but the same two that ended up dying in a mysterious plane crash.
Right, yeah, I'm just checking.
Yeah.
So they had a background with Arnold.
Yeah, they did. They gave Arnold the phone number after they looked through all of his mail with his permission, and they gave him a phone number, and they said, look, if you can think of anything else or if anything else happens, feel free to call us. Then they went on their way, and Arnold really never expected to hear from him again. And it was sometime around then that he received a phone call from some guy that I believe you knew, Gene, a guy named Ray Palmer.
This is how Kenneth Arnold became from businessman and UFO witness into actually UFO researcher.
That's exactly right. He got the call from Palmer, who was at the time, I guess, the editor of the was it Fate magazine or was it Amazing that he edited it?
At that point, I think it was Fate. Now, Fate magazine was founded by Curtis Fuller and by Ray Palmer. And later on, they had a falling out, the Fullers and the Palmers, I guess, and Ray went off to do his own thing. But this time, of course, Palmer contacted Arnold, which had to be something out of the blue. By the way, if you've read the book by Edward Ruppelt, The Report on Unidentified Flying Objects, he calls Palmer, quote, the Chicago publisher. And we'll get into more of that in a moment. By the way, there are lots of ways to contact us here at the Paracast. You can write us news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. You can send us a tweet. The Paracast. What else can we be? The Paracast on Twitter. Or check out our forums, forum.theparacast.com. Once again, that's forum.theparacast.com. Sign up. Get in on all the action. We have Curt Sutherly joining us, Gene and Chris on
the Paracast.
The GCN Radio Network, providing the world with hard-hitting talk radio. GCN. Great talk radio starts here.
We also have swag. You know, we have all these exclusive Paracast things that you can buy. We've got like, I guess, 60 or so different items. And entails T-shirts, sleeves for notebook computers, iPad cases, mouse pads, the Paracast Jumbo Tote Bag, all sorts of T-shirts and jackets and stuff like that for men and women. We have a Paracast aluminum water bottle. All this stuff, you go to store.theparacast.com, store.theparacast.com. What makes it special is that the items are the best quality, great T-shirts, fabrics, and they have our official logo on them. That's what makes them special, in multiple sizes and colors. We even have stuff for children, stuff for women, stuff for men. We have all sorts of sizes, like small up to X large. A lot of good stuff. That's the swag from the Paracast. You go to store.theparacast.com, stop by, and take a shopping tour.
Healthy soils grow healthy plants. So before you plant your survival garden this year, is your soil healthy? Maximize your crisis garden soil with EM1 from Terraganics. EM1 Organic Soil Conditioner, Fertilizer Amendment, and Compost Accelerant provides healthier gardens and faster, efficient garden composting. EM1 from Terraganics.com quickly improves soil structure by increasing nutrient availability and converting organic matter into soil humus. This improves seed germination and root growth, improves plant quality, size, color, flavor, nutrient value of fruits and vegetables, and improves shelf life. And when rain is not in the forecast, no worries. EM1 improves moisture retention in soils, helping reduce drought stress. Just like you prepare all else, prepare your crisis garden for maximum yields with EM1 from Terraganics.com. Order now at TERAGANIX.com or call toll-free 866-369-3678. That's 866-369-3678. Terraganics. Life's getting better.
Iodine protection packs from hempusa.org are now in stock for immediate delivery worldwide. Our iodine protection packs include microplant powder, green life kelp, red palm oil, and our clear roll-on iodine that will feed the body the iodine it needs. All iodine protection packs are in stock, save you money, and ship for free in all 50 states. Visit hempusa.org or call 908-691-2608 today. HempUSA.org has a revolutionary wonder food for detoxing the body and rebuilding the immune system. Microplant powder can help unclog arteries and soften heart valves while removing heavy metals, virus, fungus, bacteria, and parasites. Plus, it cleans and purifies the blood, lungs, stomach, and colon. Keep your body clean with Microplant powder. Visit us at HempUSA.org or call 908-691-2608 today.
The perfect water for drinking, bathing, and cleaning, right at your fingertips? Yes, you can now have the most powerful water ionizer on the market for less than half the price of competitors. The Genesis Platinum Water Ionizer from GibsonsHealth.com creates the perfect drinking water of 9.5 pH, automatically cleans every time you use it, and even tells you when to change filters. Other 7-plate water ionizers are priced at $2,000 or even $3,000, but the Genesis Platinum is only $16.95. Get yours today at GibsonsHealth.com. Under Nutritionals, be sure to click on Essential Oils for aromatic liquids extracted from a broad range of flowers, stems, seeds, and bark. And to really balance your body, click on Go Green, the most complete green drink available, necessary for survival. All this and more are found at GibsonsHealth.com. Call 800-388-6844. That's 800-388-6844 or GibsonsHealth.com. Healthful living since 1974.
Hi, this is Don Ecker, and you are tuned into the Paracast. Let me tell you what, you're going to hear stuff here that you probably won't hear anywhere else. Hear that, George Snorri?
We have Curt Sutherly, and we're talking about Kenneth Arnold. Curt, of course, has written about UFOs for years. He actually had a book out called UFO Mysteries, A Reporter Seeks the Truth. It was published about 10 years ago. It is still available if you want to get a copy. It's really a great book. It's actually the one and only UFO book that my son has ever read. So, Curt, you have to feel yourself proud that you inspired him to read a little bit about that subject. Okay, we're talking about Kenneth Arnold and about the fact that out of the blue, Ray Palmer, of course, he's notorious or famous for the Shaver mystery about creatures underneath the earth and Richard Shaver. He was the editor of Amazing Stories. He knew people like Edgar Rice Burroughs, and that's the guy who wrote the novel on which this movie, John Carter, is based. So, you know, Palmer got around both science fiction and the paranormal. So he calls Kenneth Arnold out of the blue. What happened next?
Well, according to most of the accounts, pretty much all the various accounts that pertain to this episode, Palmer told Arnold that he had received a letter from 2 harbor patrolmen in Tacoma, Washington, and these 2 harbor patrolmen, and I put quotes around that, they claimed that they had spotted flying discs or flying donuts or something over Maury Island, which today is actually a peninsula. At the time, I guess it was actually just an island distinct and separate from the mainland, but now it's due to geological changes, it's now a peninsula.
Well, of course, there's no global warming.
Right. And anyway, this is in Puget Sound. And so Palmer essentially wanted to know if Arnold would fly out there to investigate it, all expenses paid. In fact, I think I need to back up on something. I've jumped ahead of myself a little bit. Initially, when Palmer contacted Arnold, he asked him if he would write an article for the magazine about his sighting. And Arnold did not do this. He declined to do this. Instead, he sent him a copy of a report that he had filed with the Air Force. And in fact, Arnold ended up in the record books, in the aviation record books, because he was the first pilot to officially report the sighting of flying saucers or unidentified flying objects. Anyway, when Palmer contacted him again, it was about the letter that he had received from these 2 harbor patrolmen, and it was apparently sent to him by somebody named Fred Lee Chrisman, who later became famous for other reasons, and we can get into that later. But in the letter, Chrisman said that they had spotted these objects, that something had happened, and he was wondering if Palmer would like to hear more about this. And Palmer contacted Arnold and asked him to fly out. Arnold initially declined. And then he was talking about this with a friend of his, a colonel, I believe the man's name was Colonel Wieland, who was supposed to have been a big shot at the Nuremberg trials at the end of World War II. He was a close friend of Arnold's. And there's some suspicion that that he may have had something to do with all of this. So Arnold was surrounded by some strange intelligence people, or people that were allegedly part of the intelligence community. There was an aviation editor at the Idaho Daily Statesman, a guy named Dave Johnson, who was rumored to have been part of the intelligence community and supposedly had actually been compiling a dossier on Arnold after all of this occurred. There were a number of other people, but Arnold was in a position as a deputy federal marshal to be surrounded by these kind of people. But anyway, I'm kind of digressing. He finally agreed after talking to Whelan. Whelan basically said, "Look, if the guy's going to pay you to fly to Tacoma, Washington, to investigate this stuff, why not take his money and do it?" So Arnold decided, okay. He contacted Palmer. He said, "I'll do it." He arranged to take off for Tacoma. He didn't file a flight plan. He simply left from a pasture near his home. At the time, it was early enough in the era of aviation that you could often do that. You didn't need to file a professional flight plan. And I think his wife was really the only one that knew where he was going. Anyway, he left. He flew into Tacoma. I'm trying to remember the date. I honestly don't recall the date that he actually flew in there. But he got to Tacoma. He landed at a small airport outside of the city. He decided to land outside of the city rather than closer in because he was famous. His picture was all over the newspapers. He wanted to go in some place where he thought nobody would know him.
So were people actually just coming up in the street saying, "You're Kenneth Arnold, tell me about the space people"?
I don't recall anybody actually saying that to him, or never, in my research, I never uncovered that, but I'm sure that happened. And I know when I talked to him on the telephone, he was very brusque because he was just disgusted with the news media. So obviously he was being hounded by the news media continually. But he was a private kind of person, and this whole thing was just completely different for him. He was not the kind of guy to go seeking fame or notoriety, and he just wanted to kind of get to the bottom of this because he felt it was his patriotic duty. If this was something that the Russians had or something that some other country had, and it could be a threat to the United States, he needed to get to the bottom of this if he could. So he lands at this little airport, uses the airport payphone to call into the city looking for a room to stay at, and the city is in the throes of a housing shortage. There was almost literally no place to stay in any of the hotels. He called every place. He couldn't find a room. So finally he called the Winthrop Hotel, which was the largest and most expensive hotel in the city, and lo and behold, they had a room registered for Kenneth Arnold, or I should say reserved for Kenneth Arnold. And he said, "This has to be a different Kenneth Arnold because I didn't reserve a room." And the clerk that he talked to said, "Well, nobody else has claimed it. It's yours if you want it." So he thought, all right. He took a room. He gets into town, looks through the local phone book after he got settled in, and he's trying to locate the two principal players in this alleged sighting of UFOs over Maury Island. Now, the two players was a guy named Fred Lee Chrisman, I mentioned him before, and Harold Dahl. Now, supposedly they were the operators of the co-owners of a small boat, and they used to put out into the harbor and they'd locate drifting logs, and they would snag these logs and bring them in, and they would resell them. And I guess they also supposedly operated some sort of a lumber mill. And on this particular instance, Dahl claimed, I guess he ended up coming to the room. Arnold located Dahl's number in the phone book, called him. Dahl basically said, "Look, I don't want to talk about this, and if I were you, I'd just leave town." And he just sounded real nervous about the whole thing. Well, finally, after being pressured by Arnold, he agreed to come to the hotel room. He showed up. I told him the story about how he had been out in the boat There was a deckhand was with him, his son was with him, the family dog was with him, and these objects flew overhead, and one of them appeared to be in trouble, and he said they looked like huge metallic donuts with portholes around the inside and I guess the outside of the objects. Some kind of strange slag-like material began to spew out of some of the openings at the center of one of the objects, which appeared to be in trouble. This stuff fell all over the water, fell on the shore of nearby Maury Island, and I guess some of it hit the boat. The dog was supposedly killed. Dahl's boy was supposedly injured. I guess his arm was broken or something. And the windshield of the boat was broken, and I guess the wheelhouse was damaged. Anyway, Dahl said he turned around, went back. I guess he reported this to Fred Lee Chrisman, who, depending on the stories you read, Chrisman was his equal. Some say he was his superior in the lumber business. In any event, these two were kind of joined at the hip, it almost seems. I mean, they were closely involved in whatever was occurring at that time.
Now, we can ask you later, but Chrisman is a peculiar character with a strange story, but we'll get into that as we progress.
Okay.
So,
I don't know if you're ready to take a break or not.
No. I wanted to continue with that. Go ahead for another minute or so.
Okay. Anyway, Chrisman, according to Dahl's story, didn't believe him at first, and then he looked at the damage to the boat, and he tried to blame Dahl for simply misusing the boat. But then I guess allegedly he went back out, and he saw one of these discs himself, which he said disappeared behind a cloud, and he found a lot of these fragments laying all over the shore of Maury Island. They collected a couple boxes of this stuff and took it back. Well, Arnold gets this story out of Dahl. Dahl is like 6'2", built like a lumberjack, very nervous, even though he's very big and very intimidating in appearance. He finally leaves, and the next day Arnold is awakened in the hotel room by somebody beating on his door, and it's Fred Chrisman. And he comes in and he tells his version of the story. Well, by the time this is all finished, Arnold is getting a little freaked out. He's thinking, man, I'm in over my head here.
And we'll get into what might have caused that feeling in further detail. We have Curt Sutherly joining Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
America's #1 source for independent talk radio for over a decade. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. If you'd like to listen to GCN programs on the go, I have great news. GCN has created a Droid and iPhone application, and it's free. Just as easy as going to GCNlive.com, click on the banner, and download. Before you know it, you'll be listening to your favorite hard-hitting GCN shows, live or on demand, right on your Droid or iPhone, 24/7 and on the go. So download the Droid and iPhone app free by clicking on the banner at GCNlive.com. Thanks again for listening to GCNlive.com. Again, that's GCNlive.com. Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold IRAs? They've been available since 1986, yet the financial industry won't recognize the value of gold for your retirement. Gold has outperformed paper investments, yet no word about IRAs. If you would like to have gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low returns. Call 800-686-2237. Secure your future and call 1-800-686-2237.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
With Curt Sutherly joining us on the Paracast with Gene and Chris, focusing on first the amazing sighting that started it all, although maybe not in historical sense, but certainly in the popular media. Flying saucers seen by Kenneth Arnold, and then his involvement in the Maury Island affair. Really, really strange. So Chrisman tells a different story, Curt, than Dahl?
His story is, his story kind of reinforces Dahl's. He basically tells Arnold that, Dahl came to me and said he had this sighting, that the boat was damaged by slag falling from one of the objects, which appeared to be in trouble. And then he says, I didn't really believe him, so I went back out there, and and found this stuff laying all over the shore at Maury Island and saw one of these objects myself. But he comes back, he tells Arnold this, or he shows up the next morning at the hotel room, gets Arnold out of bed, tells him the story, and by the time he leaves, Arnold is freaking out. He's thinking, I don't know what to do. You know, I don't really like these guys. I don't really trust them. I mean, he's not saying this aloud, obviously. He's thinking all of this at the time.
Now, this is largely based also on his account in that book, The Coming of the Saucers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's part of the account in his book. It's also something that he told me during the interview, and it's also something that he's reported on in other places since. Anyway, he also told me during the interview that, by the way, the information that he put in The Coming of the Saucers, the quotes that he has in there, the comments, they weren't made up. He actually took a small reel-to-reel tape recorder with him. He said it was one of the earliest of its kind, and he said he just wanted people to be aware of that so that they wouldn't think that he made all this stuff up. So everything that happened in the room, the various interviews he had recorded. It'd be interesting to know if those records are still around someplace, if those tapes would still be available. But anyway, again, I'm digressing. He talks to Dahl, he talks to Chrisman, and he's freaking out, and he decides, I need help. So for some reason, he thinks of Captain E.J. Smith, this airline pilot who had spotted flying saucers and whom he had met when they were looking at the photo taken by the Coast Guardsman. So he calls Smith, and Smith, as it turns out, has the day off. He flies up to, I guess he flies into Oregon to pick him up, flies Smith back to the hotel room. They're camped out in the room, and they're discussing all of this. The next day, Chrisman and Dahl both show up, tell the whole story over again. So you have these four guys sitting in the room. Chrisman and Dahl leave, and Arnold and Smith are sitting here they're puzzling over all of this, and they get a phone call. And it's a phone call from a guy named Ted Morello, who is in the UPI office, strangely enough, right across the street from where the Winthrop Hotel was located. And he says, you know, you guys are in there talking about flying saucers. And Arnold said, what do you mean? He says, look, he said, I know what you're talking about. He said, somebody is calling here telling me verbatim what you guys are discussing in the room. He said, it's like your room's bugged.
That's pretty bizarre. I mean, that really makes you wonder how involved the military intelligence folks or the intelligence operatives. This is pre-CIA. Could have been FBI. Do we have any indication who this could have been?
Well, nobody really seems to know. I mean, there's some indication, and I'm kind of getting to this, there's some indication that Smith himself may have been an informant. But in any event, at that point, when they get off the phone with Morello, they literally tore the room apart looking for some kind of bugging devices. They didn't find anything. Now, from what I understand, this was like a third-floor room, and it was in a corner, and they didn't, I guess there were no other rooms available, so they couldn't simply move to a different location. They were stuck in that room. And
now, in terms of bugs, understand, ladies and gentlemen, this is the late 1940s. We're not talking about these microscopic radio transmitters you can stick inside a light bulb base or something.
Right. This would have been something fairly sizable, something that with a thorough search you should have been able to find. Anyway, there were subsequent interviews with Dahl and Chrisman, and the whole scenario got worse and got stranger and stranger. At one point, Chrisman brought a box of these slag-like samples into the room. So they had samples of this mysterious substance, which looked like slag from a smelter, from something that was just dumped out of a furnace at an ore site. They had this stuff scattered all over the room. And Chrisman claimed that he had sent some of this stuff back to some lab, back east someplace to some lab, asking to have it tested, but he hadn't gotten any kind of response on this yet. There's some rumors that he actually sent some of this stuff to Ray Palmer, although I don't know if that's ever been verified or not. In any case, by this time, with the whole business with Arnold and Smith, they're both freaking out, or at least that's the way it seems to Arnold. There are different times when Smith, and I'm kind of jumping around here because I'm trying to reconstruct this from memory, a lot of it. There were times when Smith and Chrisman would leave the room, and at one point they left for quite a few hours, and supposedly Chrisman drove Smith back to Seattle so that he could pick up some personal items and bring his car back, because Arnold had flown up there and brought him back, I guess, in short notice. But in any case, on at least 2 occasions, Smith and Chrisman left the room for an extended period of time together, and there's some suspicion as to whether these guys knew each other or not, knew each other previously. Anyway, this Ted Morello kept calling and saying, I'm still getting a mysterious caller telling me verbatim what you guys are talking about. Then they get a phone call from a guy named Lance, Ted Lance, I think his name was. He was a local reporter for the local paper. He called and he said that he was getting calls from a mysterious informant, and that he knew they were talking about flying saucers. Well, they hung up on him, or Arnold hung up on him. The next day, this Lance guy shows up at the room. Smith frisks him and kicks him out of the room. Well, later on, and of course I'm jumping ahead again, later on Lance wrote a newspaper story, and then he subsequently ended up dying under mysterious circumstances. But again,
now, you say mysterious circumstances in what respect?
Well, there are different stories. There was one story that he died in a car crash. There's another story that he died of an extended illness, which was supposedly meningitis, but it took weeks before I guess the coroner's report came back on this. Nobody really knows. He was not an old guy. He was a fairly young man, and he shouldn't have died when he did. But there was just one of many things that occurred during this period of time that were very, very strange. And again, I'm getting ahead of myself again, so I need to kind of back up. When all of this was going on with the bugging, that's when Arnold finally decided it's time to call in some professionals. He remembered the phone number he had for the 2 Army Air Force officers. He called, I guess it was Davidson he called, and he called him at McCord Field, which is today McCord Air Force Base. And when Davidson answered the phone, he said, look, I want to talk to you about this, but not at this moment. He said, let me call you from a different phone. He actually left his office, went to a pay phone and called Arnold back. It was almost as though he was worried that his phone was bugged. So this whole thing, and Arnold made a point of this during the interview, and I think he also made a point of it in his book, The Coming of the Saucers. This was something that really freaked the guy out, that he's trying to talk to this Army officer about his room being bugged and about these 2 shady characters who are telling him this story, and he doesn't know what to believe. And this Army officer is basically saying, look, maybe this isn't a secure line. Let me call you from a different phone line. So anyway, these 2 guys show up, Davidson and Brown, the 2 Army officers. They interview Chrisman and Dahl. Chrisman tells them, actually Dahl takes off. When he finds out that the Army is showing up, he splits. He don't want anything to do with this. Chrisman sits and talks to these 2 guys. As soon as he's done with his story, they look at each other and they make an excuse to leave. Like, look, well, we got to leave. We flew in on an Army transport. We need to get this plane back to an air show the next day. Supposedly it was the ceremony for Air Force Day, for the Air Force separating from the Army at that time. They were becoming a separate entity, and they did in 1947. And they used this as an excuse to leave. The feeling you get from this is that these 2 guys picked something up in Chrisman's narrative that didn't make sense to them, or that they felt was very suspicious.
You know what's suspicious? That is the weight that the advertisers have to endure at this point. We have Curt Sutherly with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
So here's what happened. I was placing an order online. The site went down. It just stopped responding. It took hours before it returned, but I'd already placed the order with another company. If your site goes down, you could lose business. And if you have a business or personal site, you'll want to know it's easy to run and it will stay online. At iWeb, your site is hosted on one of the most reliable networks in the world. Check it out. iWeb.com. That's iWeb.com.
You expect professional service from your doctor, your accountant, and even the girl who takes your morning coffee order. Why not from your domain registrar, too? Namecheap.com provides stellar service with no sneaky upselling. We offer more features and security options for your website than there are ways to order a latte. And new domains come with a WhoIsGuard to protect your personal info. At Namecheap.com, you can get your domain for as low as $2.99. Now is a great time to get to know Namecheap.com.
Did you know that how well your brain works is directly dependent upon how well your gut works? Did you know that an inflamed or compromised digestive system directly contributes to poor focus, depression, irritability, attention deficit, and hyperactivity? By eliminating the inflammation in your intestines and by having good bacteria populations, you may enjoy better brain function. The most important protein your body needs to keep inflammation down is glutathione. The number one food to support a dramatic increase in glutathione production is undamaged whey protein from grass-fed cows. Virtually all whey proteins are damaged by heat, filtration, and chemicals, except one. One World Whey is the most life-giving whey protein on the market. It is changing the lives of its users in very positive ways. One World Whey may act as one of the most important health foods to support your and your child's optimal brain function. Call 888-988-3325. That's 888-988-3325. Or visit oneworldwhey.com. That's oneworldwhey.com.
Would it save you time to get the best quality water filters and the best quality storable foods from one company? You bet it would, and now you can at BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. Big Berkey water filter products and great tasting, long-lasting, storable Wise foods are both now available on one website, BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. Wise foods, ready-to-eat meals are packed in airtight nitrogen pouches and come with a 25-year shelf life. Big Berkey water filters are powerful enough to purify treated, untreated, or even stagnant pond water. Combine Berkey water filters with Wise foods for an unbeatable preparedness combination. Get free shipping on every order over $50, and GCN listeners receive 5% off all ceramic filter systems. Visit Big, BERKEY, waterfilters.com or call 877-99-BERKEY. That's 877-99-BERKEY, or go to BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com.
What if pain could be reduced, ailments could be alleviated, physical and mental stress could be eased, and blood circulation increased, all by simply lying down? Introducing the original Biomat. The Biomat is an FDA-registered medical device that combines deep-penetrating infrared space-age technology and revitalizing negative ions with the incredible healing power of amethyst crystals. A Biomat can boost your immune system, relieve pain and stiffness, reduce stress and fatigue, and assists in detoxifying your body. Join the thousands of people reporting relief from chronic pain, fibromyalgia, arthritis, sports injuries, insomnia, and much more. Each Biomat comes with a lifetime trade-in and 3-year warranty. Learn more at bio-mats.com, spelled bio-mats.com, or call 360-944-8692. That's 360-944-8692. Visit bio-mats.com today and enhance your life with a Biomat.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And if you'd like to catch up on past episodes, we have hundreds of shows for you to download, direct from theparacast.com. That's theparacast.com. Or check us out at iTunes.
We have Curt Sutherly with Gene and Chris in the Paracast, retracing the incredible Maury Island incident and what happened. All this byplay that reads almost like a spy novel, doesn't it?
Oh, more than that even.
Yeah, like something out of the X-Files.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Chris Carter, the creator of the X-Files, could have used this as a template for the whole series. Maybe he did.
Right.
We were talking about the fact that the two Army officers left after listening to Chrisman give his rendition for the UFO sighting that he and Dahl supposedly experienced, or actually the two separate sightings. Anyway, they seemed to pick up on something in Chrisman's story that didn't make sense or that they didn't believe, so they decided, okay, we're leaving. They didn't explain.
Do you know what that factor is? Does the book go into it?
No, and Arnold himself didn't know. I asked him about this, and he said that the only thing they would say was, look, we can't stick around. We have to get our plane back to the airfield because tomorrow is Air Force Day. We need it as part of a celebration, which didn't make any sense. I mean,
but they did take the box of flag with them.
Yes, they did. Well, and they only took that because Chrisman forced it on them. He basically, I think it was like a couple of boxes. He basically said, look, before you guys take off, I want you to take this stuff with you. And he kind of forced them to take it along. Anyway, they got in their plane. It was an old bomber, and flew out of there. And the next day, it was Paul Lance was the name of this reporter. Lance writes this story. They get up, there's a story in the local paper about this Army plane exploding or crashing and these guys dying in it. And he identifies the 2 Army Corps officers, even though the military had not yet released their identity. And later he said he got it from a mysterious informant who called the newspaper office.
Now, understand here, in normal practice, I don't know if this was in effect then, but now you don't disclose the names of the deceased in some kind of accident until, number one, their family has been notified officially. So in a case here, he kind of jumped the gun, huh?
Yeah, well, at the time, reporters could do that kind of thing and get away with it. He had a source, even though it was an anonymous source, and he really didn't care. He just thought, this is a great story. His editor obviously approved it, and they ran it. It ran headline front page. They cited the mysterious informant as saying that the plane may have been shot down by gunfire. That all subsequent investigation by the military, I guess they disclosed that it was an exhaust stack on one of the engines caught fire, basically ended up tearing the entire wing off the aircraft, and the plane crashed. There were 2 Army Air Corps pilot and the officers, I guess they were flying as pilot and co-pilot, and there were 2 passengers on board the plane. There was a tech sergeant, if I remember correctly, and a sergeant those 2, they parachuted out of the aircraft. Now, the youngest of the 4, the sergeant, was a hitchhiker. He was flying, he was getting a free shuttle service by the military from one point to another on board this aircraft. They got out, they parachuted to safety. The 2 Army officers apparently didn't even attempt to parachute out, and that's a big question mark today yet. Why didn't these guys try to get out of that aircraft? From what I understand, in 2007, investigators went back and recombed that location, and they were able to find some bits of debris from the aircraft.
That was the UFO hunters.
Yeah, I think
that was their pilot episode.
Yeah, but from what I understand, the initial investigation of the crash, I guess they removed most of the debris, and I guess if there was any fragments from this alleged UFO on board, that was taken away during the initial investigation. But in any case, you have all of this. These 2 guys dead. Arnold and Smith are in the office. Dahl has disappeared. He's gone. Chrisman supposedly gets recalled to military duty and is sent off to Alaska. Meanwhile, Ted Morello, the UPI reporter, is telling Arnold, look, he's saying, I'm trying to get to the bottom of this. I'm using all my network of sources and informants to try to find out what's going on here, who the mystery informant is. I'm getting nowhere. If I were you, I'd leave town. So finally, they decide, okay, we're going to get out of town. Arnold decides he wants to say goodbye to Dahl. So now I have to back up on something. Earlier, a couple of days earlier, they were in town for like 3-4 days during this whole scenario. When Dahl first talked to Arnold, he wanted to, I don't know what he wanted to show him, but he suggested that Arnold come out to a house occupied by his secretary. This was supposedly in one of the more rundown areas of town. And anyway, Arnold got in the car, they drove over to this place, and he said it was like a house from like a 1912, 1917 era, something like that, beat-up place, furnished with odds and ends of furniture. There was a woman working there, and I guess she was supposedly the secretary for their lumber mill scavenging operation. And I'm not sure what it was Dahl wanted to show him at that time, but Arnold was there. He took a careful look around. He decided the place looked like it was ready to fall apart. Later, when he decided he wanted to say, before he left, he told Smith, he said, I want to say goodbye to Dahl. He said, for some reason, I guess he trusted him more than he trusted Chrisman. He sort of liked the guy, even though he was kind of leery of him at the same time. He drove out to the house, and the place was empty. And not only was it empty, there were cobwebs all over the place. He said later, it looked like it had not been lived in for 3 months. There was not a stick of furniture in the place. There was nobody there. The door was standing ajar when he drove up.
Okay, this is the address then that Dahl had given to him.
Yeah, this was the place.
But he never visited it before.
Actually, he did, yeah. He had gone out there with him.
At that time, it didn't look like it hadn't been occupied in 3 months.
It was decrepit, but it was furnished and it was clean.
Okay.
And now all of a sudden, a couple of days later, the place is completely empty and covered with cobwebs and dirt, like it had not been inhabited for months.
Like he went into a time warp.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, I mean, this is one of the freakier things of this whole episode. I mean, Arnold couldn't explain it. Nobody's been able to explain it. Most people don't even acknowledge that this is part of the scenario. This is just something that is so out there that it's better off, most people figure it's better off just ignoring it than to try to fit it into the rest of the scenario, even though the rest of the scenario is strange enough.
Now, the strange enough thing happened, and let's kind of move the narrative along here, and that is when Arnold left, he ran into a problem with his plane.
Yes, he did. He landed at a small airport about halfway home. He needed to stop for fuel. When he went to take off, the engine seized up. He was only a couple of hundred feet in the air. The engine seized up, shut off, and he was able to effect a fairly safe crash landing. I guess one of his landing struts was damaged, but other than that, he was okay, and he was able to repair the aircraft fairly quickly and get on home. He said, when I asked him about this, he said his fuel switch was shut off. How this happened, he doesn't know.
Now, the fuel switch is something turned on manually.
Yes, it was a manual switch.
So subconsciously, he would have had to have turned off that switch for this to have happened. And we'll get into more details of this in a moment. We have Curt Sutherly with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Are you tired of searching for great talk radio?
Something more important.
Search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Ray Perkins, a reclusive veteran burned out from the Gulf War, lives tortured by relentless, perplexing nightmares. Nightmares of a horrific battle in deep space and of a mysterious woman suffering in agony for her devastated world. A woman not yet born, calling across centuries to him. Then, a coincidence leads him to his destiny, his chance to alter the universe. Attack of the Rockoids. The former fiction editor for Star Wars and Indiana Jones, Robert Simpson, writes, "The soul of the novel Attack of the Rockoids lies in its heart and passion for building a convincing tale of a love that spans the galaxy. A thrilling story. Attack of the Rockoids is available now. Read a sample chapter and get a special discount off of the cover price at our website, rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com. Attack of the Rockoids, a novel in the grand science fiction tradition."
So you're a maker of something. Woodcrafts, fishing lures, glass designs, jewelry, purses, perfumes, goat's milk soap. Whatever it is, you made it here in America. Now you're eager for people to buy your products right here locally, instead of buying competing products made on the other side of the world, right? Then you need to check out localmakers.com. Support America. Buy and sell locally at localmakers.com. Doesn't matter if you're a home-based business or a major manufacturer. Localmakers.com offers an easy way to connect with customers within your local community, as well as across the U.S., simply by entering a zip code. And there's no cost to join. So if you're a maker who needs buyers, go to localmakers.com and stock your products on one of our shelves. Localmakers.com, promoting, preserving, and supporting your neighbors' manufacturing businesses.
Digestive health is the key to wellness and elimination of toxins. That bears repeating. Digestive health is the key to wellness and elimination of toxins. And Pro EM1 Daily Probiotic Cleanse is the key to digestive health. Pro EM1 is a powerful liquid probiotic, strong enough to cleanse, gentle enough to use every day. Pro EM1 is dairy, wheat, and soy-free, contains all natural and certified organic ingredients, contains no preservatives or animal products, supports a healthy digestive and immune system, supports weight loss, improves absorption of food nutrients, aids in controlling yeast infections, is never freeze-dried, and uses 3 groups of live, viable, beneficial microbes to cleanse and remove toxins. Order Pro EM1 Daily Probiotic Cleanse at Terraganics.com, spelled TerraGanix.com, Terraganics.com, or call toll-free 866-369-3678. That's 866-369-3678. Pro EM1, the raw probiotic.
What you're about to hear will help you remember where to find the best water filter products at the best prices on the web. There. Did you hear it? BerkeyShop.com. With the newest Berkey products in stock, the best prices on Berkey products anywhere, fast free shipping, and the most amazing customer service. BerkeyShop.com. Home of all Berkey water filter products like the Big Berkey for producing clean drinking water by removing contaminants, chemicals, heavy metals, and even fluoride. Call 1-888-6-BERKEY to get your Berkey water filter. Perfect for home, travel, camping, or disasters. And BerkeyShop.com is the perfect site to get your Berkey because we're open 24/7 with free shipping and no sales tax. Even celebrities and NFL athletes shop at BerkeyShop.com. Call 1-888-6-BERKEY to order your Berkey products. That's 888-6-BERKEY or go to BerkeyShop.com. 888-6-BERKEY or go to BerkeyShop.com. For everything Berkey, shop BerkeyShop.com.
Hi, my name is Richard Dolan. You're listening to the Paracast.
With Gene, with Chris, we have Curt Sutherly trying to remember the strange mystery of Maury Island and Kenneth Arnold's participation. So that's the point to bring up over and over again. We have an experienced pilot, and I assume then that the plane doesn't take off unless you turn on the fuel switch.
Exactly. I mean, you need to hit the fuel switch in order to fire up the engine, and obviously he did this. The engine fired up. He had just filled up the fuel tank, and he flew out of there, and it shut off. And he didn't realize until later that the fuel switch was turned off again. And he doesn't know how this happened. He doesn't have any recollection of having done it himself. It's just another one of these bizarre things that occurred. And anyway, he landed safely, took care of what minor repairs needed to be taken care of, and flew on home, and pretty much tried to put the whole episode behind him. He conferred some with Ray Palmer, and to tell you the truth, I don't think he ever actually did put together a detailed report on all of this for Palmer. Well, actually, they did the collaboration with the Coming of the Saucers, because it was included in their book, but he never actually did an article for the magazine.
Did he ever have a subsequent comment about what's in the book, or just affirm what he wrote there?
When I talked to him, he just reiterated several times, like, look, this stuff happened. You know, you can believe it or you cannot believe it. You know, I'm sick of reporters dogging me. In fact, when I talked to him, the only way I was able to actually get him to agree to talk to me at all was simply by kind of making him aware that I was sympathetic to what he had experienced, and that I was also an aviation enthusiast. In fact, about the first 5 or 10 minutes of the phone conversation, we just discussed aircraft and aviation. I had been a crew chief in the Air Force on fighter aircraft. When I was a kid, I lived a quarter of a mile from an airport. I used to beg rides from pilots and Cessnas and Piper Cubs all the time. And when I brought this to his attention, his attitude before that was kind of like, why should I even talk to you? You're just another reporter. I hang up on reporters. I'm sick of reporters. All they do is hound me. He pretty much said that. And that's when I explained to him. I said, look, I've read your book, and I'm sympathetic to what you must have gone through, and I'd love to hear more. And then we talked. Basically, he just restated pretty much everything that he had stated in the book. And he said, I'm at the point in my life, he said, where I don't really think about it a whole lot. He said, it's history. He said it was strange. And I asked him about Smith. I said, you still keep in touch? And he said they had up to that point. And this was it was in 1975 or 76 when I interviewed him.
Okay, so we're talking at a time here where he was in his mid to late 60s.
Yeah, and at the time, I guess, Smith had retired as an airline pilot, and he had been invited to his retirement ceremony, but there was some kind of conflicting schedule, and he couldn't make it. And he just, pretty much I guess at that point, that was pretty much the last they had been in touch with one another. But the fact that Smith kept disappearing with Chrisman, that somebody was informing the local media, the local press, as to what was going on in the room, that they couldn't find any bugging devices. It almost points a finger at Smith.
Now, did Arnold ever feel that Smith had betrayed him?
No, he didn't. He liked Smith. I mean, he liked the man immensely, and in all honesty, I don't think he would have admitted that had he even suspected it. He liked the man too much. He told me, he said, from the moment I met this guy, he said he was just a very, very likable man. They immediately bonded. They were like personalities. They had the same kind of sense of humor. Of course, they were both pilots. They had many things in common, and it was just one of those happy friendships that the man fell into at that point in time. Unfortunately, maybe it wasn't just a happy friendship. Maybe he was set up. Nobody really knows.
But he didn't want to think that. He wanted to take the innocent viewpoint, which is, this is my friend, and that's it. Did he ever try to speculate about what Chrisman and Smith were talking about during their absences?
No, he never really did speculate about that. I don't think he wanted to speculate about it. He didn't want to think badly of Smith. And even if Smith had been going off to confer with Chrisman, and even if he was the informant, the mystery man filling the media in on what was going on, I mean, what was Arnold going to do about it? I do know one thing. One of the things that Arnold brought up, and I think he mentioned this in his book as well, his buddy Colonel Whelan had given him a 32 caliber revolver to carry with him for personal protection. Again, this was during a different era when you didn't need a permit to carry a concealed firearm. He just simply carried it. And he had it with him in the hotel room, and when Smith discovered he had a gun on him, he was kind of aghast at this. I think it actually stunned him, and Arnold admitted that. He said it was like Smith was totally dumbfounded that it was carrying a gun. He didn't make any further bones about it, but the fact that he found out this guy that he had hooked up with in the room was carrying a gun kind of shocked him, and I guess he really didn't know what to do about that. So, but there were so many little elements to this whole thing, and it really does smack of something out of the X-Files. Oh, there was one other thing too. Before Arnold and Smith left town, before Chrisman and Dahl kind of disappeared, and I guess Dahl was later located sitting in a movie theater at the end of all of this. He used to go to this particular theater all the time, and after Arnold had gone to this house that turned out to be empty, he later found Dahl in this movie theater, and Dahl just basically said, "Let me alone. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I don't want to be bothered with it." Dahl's voice supposedly had run off, and there was an FBI report that was later released under the Freedom of Information Act, and according to the FBI report, the boy, I guess, was found in Montana or someplace. Now, there were reports that the boy had suffered from amnesia.
The thing I wonder about here is the strange things that went on, being basically they have eavesdropping going on. You have the house, which suddenly is changed. It kind of smells a little bit like some kind of crazy intelligence operation where somebody was playing a game.
It exactly does, and there was a major sander that was brought into this by Smith. This was when Smith disappeared at one point. He actually admitted that he had contacted somebody else in Army intelligence, and it was this Major Sander who showed up. I guess it was on the day that Smith and Arnold decided to get out of town after they'd been warned repeatedly they should get out of town. Sander took them to a smelting plant outside of the city. And he had samples. They still had a few samples of this material that Chrisman had brought in. And Sander he took them to this smelting plant. And Arnold later said there were piles of slag-like material laying all over the place. Sander took them up to one particular pile, which looked very much like the stuff that Chrisman had. And Arnold smelled a rat. He wanted to look at some of the other sample piles that were laying around, and Sander got him out of there. He wouldn't let him look at anything else. They hustled. I guess they were actually in a military car. He hustled them back into the car, and they left.
Now, I have to ask you a question here as we go along here, and that is, there was a dust-up, or at least a one-side dust-up, between Ray Palmer and Edward Ruppelt, because in the book, The Report on Unidentified Flying Objects by Edward Ruppelt, he talked of Maury Island as a hoax and, in a sense, implicated Palmer as someone responsible for this hoax. Did Arnold have any feelings or mention anything about Ruppelt?
No, he didn't. He didn't mention Ruppelt at all, and he didn't think that Palmer was anything maybe more than a dupe. That he was simply duped by the letter that Chrisman initially sent him, and Chrisman pretty much admitted to the FBI when there was, I guess the Fed sat down, local agents sat down, interviewed both Dahl and Chrisman separately, and they kind of said, or I should say Chrisman said to the agent, he said, look, he said, I tailored the letter to what I thought this guy Palmer would want to hear. You know, he knew Palmer was into flying saucers, UFOs, strange phenomena.
So he's trying to pull one over on Ray Palmer.
That's what it sounded like, and that was the sense that the FBI agent had gotten out of this too. That this was they basically used Palmer as a way to further whatever objective they had in mind.
Okay, we'll have to look into that objective and where it might have gone, or is going, or has gone. Wherever you want to say about it, with Curt Sutherly and Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
The GCN Radio Network, providing the world with hard-hitting talk radio. GCN. Great talk radio starts here.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter, and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's Lemke soft.com. Lemkesoft.com. Lemke soft.com.
Are you having trouble paying your mortgage? Maybe your mortgage loan is upside down or in foreclosure. Maybe the bank already foreclosed on you. Don't sit around being a victim of bank fraud. Fight back. We have the tools to help you fight back. Here's how. Go to inspectoraudit.com and click on the GCN radio special. Order a summary audit. Find the real truth about your loan.
Maybe like me, you'll find your bank loan was paid off already. Maybe, like me, you'll find your bank defrauded you at the closing. And maybe, like me, you will go after them.
Did you know 78% of home loans in the last 10 years violated consumer credit laws? We should not let the banks get away with this fraud. Go to inspectoraudit.com and click on the GCN radio special. Order a summary audit today and find the truth about your mortgage loan. That's inspectoraudit.com or call 855-373-4948. That's 1-855-373-4948.
That's what it sounds like when a burglar kicks in the door of a dark house that looks like no one is home. Don't let your home be the next target. Make it look like someone is home watching television with Fake TV. Fake TV is a small electronic device that makes the same light as a real television. So from outside, it looks like someone is home watching TV. Fake TV plugs in just like a lamp on a timer, but is far more convincing to burglars. Fake TV deters burglars, costs far less than an alarm, and is highly recommended by numerous police departments. Use it anytime you're away from home. To order your Fake TV for only $34.95, go to faketv.com. or call 1-877-5-FAKE-TV. Each additional Fake TV is only $29.95, so get one for you and one for a loved one for safety, security, and peace of mind for both of you. Call 877-5-FAKE-TV or go to faketv.com. faketv.com, the burglar deterrent.
Iodine protection packs from hempusa.org are now in stock for immediate delivery worldwide. Our iodine protection packs include microplant powder, green life kelp, red palm oil, and our clear roll-on iodine that will feed the body the iodine it needs. All iodine protection packs are in stock, save you money, and ship for free in all 50 states. Visit hempusa.org or call 908-691-2608 today. HempUSA.org has a revolutionary wonder food for detoxing the body and rebuilding the immune system. Microplant powder can help unclog arteries and soften heart valves while removing heavy metals, virus, fungus, bacteria, and parasites. Plus, it cleans and purifies the blood, lungs, stomach, and colon. Keep your body clean with Microplant powder. Visit us at HempUSA.org or call 908-691-2608 today.
This is Jerome Clark, author of the UFO Encyclopedia and other books. You're listening to the Paracast.
So was Maury Island really an insidious hoax that unfortunately resulted in the deaths of a couple of people and might have claimed a third had Arnold not made that crash landing? We have Curt Sutherly with Gene and Chris trying to sort out this mystery. So in retrospect here, who was Fred Lee Chrisman? I mean, this guy shows up allegedly as a possible suspect or person of interest in the Kennedy assassination. He had a talk show. You know, even passing Arnold, and we'll get on to Chrisman in a moment. So Arnold basically tells you in your conversation, everything in that book is it. He doesn't have much more to add. Now, Arnold himself, he, I guess, was sort of a UFO investigator for a while, then he drifted away. He tried to run for lieutenant governor of his home state, and he lost. Maybe because he was the flying saucer candidate?
That's very possible. Well, with the public, who knows? I would say that probably didn't help his chances any.
You don't think it would? So now,
probably not.
Now, as far as Arnold's own reaction, what did he think was responsible for Maury Island and all the things that happened? Did he have a final opinion when you talked to him, 25, 28 years later?
He was just completely baffled. Even after all those years, he was absolutely baffled by everything that happened. The fact that somebody was contacting the local media, the local press, I should say, because there really wasn't media per se in that time other than radio, that Arnold and Chrisman, he had this strong feeling that these two guys were up to something, that the story they were giving him was so much BS, but he couldn't prove it. And he really, I think deep down, he really was hoping that what they were telling him was the truth, because it would have been something to further corroborate his own sighting. And
is that why he did this? Because he was hoping to validate what happened to him?
I think partly. He didn't say that, but I got the sense that maybe that was partly the case. But again, it goes back to the fact that this guy was a true patriot. I mean, if he had not injured his knee early on when he was playing football, I mean, he was a world-class athlete in other ways. I mean, this guy could have been Captain America. You know, that's the kind of person he was. You know, you dig into this guy's background, and I'm sure whatever dossier that the feds may have put together on him, that's probably what they summed this up as. You know, that this guy is a true blue patriot. He's an American spirit. He has nothing but the good of the country at heart. And he ends up getting caught up in this, whatever was going on out in Tacoma with Fred Chrisman and Harold Dahl. And the more you look at it, the more it looks like this was something that Chrisman orchestrated, maybe at the behest of somebody else. Because and you had just touched on this briefly, there are stories that Chrisman may have been some sort of government operative. He was subpoenaed during the Garrison investigation of the Kennedy assassination, as supposedly he was one of the mysterious tramps that showed up at Dealey Plaza, was, I guess, identified in one of the photos as being such. And later, when he was supposed to have gone off to Alaska, after being reinducted in the military at the end of the whole Maury Island episode, the rumors suggest that he didn't go to Alaska. He ended up in Korea. And nobody really seems to know exactly where this guy was for a period of time, and then suddenly he ends up back in Tacoma again, and he takes on the persona of a radio, a late night radio talk show host. I guess John Gold was his name, and he was a real son of a bitch. on the air, and supposedly he was shot at several times, probably because of his abrasive nature on the air.
Was he like an early Howard Stern?
Yeah, that's the sense you get of this. He was very much you're almost your stereotypical Howard Stern kind of character. Except
shock jock.
Yeah, exactly. But he predated all of these people by a good many years, and he pissed some people off. And supposedly, I think it was John Kuehl actually dug into that a little bit and said that Chrisman was shot at, probably because of some comments he made about somebody on the air. But again, there was so much about this guy that was just strange and vague, and you do get the sense that he was a player, maybe like a mid-level player in some higher game.
He was like an early Richard Doty.
Yeah. But who exactly he worked for? Did he work for the CIA? Did he work for somebody else? I mean, the FBI was the field agent that investigated. He put in the report that he was convinced that these two guys were not telling the entire truth about what they knew, that they were either making something up, or they were just they were just not telling everything.
Before we go back to that, let's kind of wrap up with Kenneth Arnold. At the end of his days, and you talked to him a few years before he passed, did he have a final opinion as to what was responsible for UFOs?
No, he didn't. He was not the kind of guy that was going to venture an opinion like that. He said at the time he felt that this had to be some sort of foreign aircraft. And they kept going back to the idea that this is something that the Russians had manufactured, because that was at the point in time where the hostilities between our country and the Soviet Union were starting to really emerge.
So he didn't think in terms of ET at all?
No, he didn't really. I think that was something that was kind of put into his head during the weeks and the months that followed, when all of the other sightings began to occur. When they started talking about flying saucers and unidentified flying objects, and I guess we also had during that period the various green fireball sightings that were occurring in the Southwest.
Right.
So there's a lot of really weird things were happening.
Was he aware of the Horton Brothers flying wing design that was operational in the mid to late 40s?
That's a good question. I never thought to ask him that. But having been a private pilot, a professional pilot in many ways, I'm sure he was. I mean, there were very few pilots during that period that didn't know about the Horton Brothers. And for your listeners, the Horton Brothers were German innovators who developed the original flying wing. They also had a number of other designs that were very well in advance of their time. And there were rumors that they were actually brought back to this country and that they worked on the original flying wing that was developed by the Air Force, or I should say, I guess it was actually developed by Northrop Aviation for the Air Force. And
because the Horton flying wing did look a lot like the drawings that were made of the Arnold incident.
Yeah, I think if you study the specifications, the dimensions are very similar as well. But that whole business with the flying wing, that the original flying wing that the Air Force was flying, they had a number of accidents with that. One pilot was killed, and when he died, they renamed Muroc Airfield in his honor. His name, it was a Captain Edwards, and then renamed Muroc Airfield Edwards Air Force Base, or Edwards Field at the time. But I guess many years later, when Jim Northrop, I guess his name was, the head of the company, when he was dying, he said on his deathbed that Stuart Symington, who was the Secretary of the Air Force at the time, canceled the flying wing program for no particular reason. It was all political. And it kind of makes you wonder, because they ended up literally destroying virtually every flying wing that had been operational. They had built first reciprocating models. There were 2 or 3 of those. Then I think 1 or 2 of them were converted to jet aircraft, and they flew fairly well. And all of that was destroyed until today, until the 1990s, I should say, when they built the new B-2, which again is simply a variation on that design. Again, the dimensions are almost the same. So all of this does trace back kind of to the Horton Brothers during World War II.
Now, looking over Arnold, did he ever voice any comments or opinions about Ray Palmer? Because Palmer, of course, had some pretty exotic things to say about UFOs.
No, his contact with Palmer was limited. It was simply that scenario where he ended up going and doing the investigation for Palmer, and then of course when they got together and I get the feeling that Palmer pretty much wrote the book, but he just simply wrote it with Arnold's input.
So basically, Arnold may have given him the notes and the information, maybe the recordings, and Palmer wrote. It's kind of like Shaver, kind of like the Shaver mystery, where Ray Palmer wrote all this stuff under the signature of Richard Shaver, but he, of course, just took Shaver's notes, which were very rough. Shaver was not really a great fiction writer or a great writer in general. I guess he was better in his later years. By the way, there are lots of ways to contact us here at the Paracast. You can write us, news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. You can send us a tweet, the Paracast. What else can we be? The Paracast on Twitter. Or check out our forums, forum.theparacast.com. Once again, that's forum.theparacast.com. Sign up. Get in on all the action. We have Curt Sutherly joining us, Gene and Chris on
the Paracast.
America's #1 source for independent talk radio for over a decade. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Hi, Ted Anderson announcing a great way to listen to radio on the telephone. By calling 760-569-7700, you'll be hearing GCNlive.com programs in seconds. Come to GCNlive.com, find your favorite host's dedicated phone number, and hear them 24/7. You heard me right. Every show has a dedicated phone number. Stop by GCNlive.com and bookmark their number today. And again, that's 760-569-7700. We the people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink, embed strips and fibers to protect from counterfeit and carting to a private bank, having it lent back at interest, forcing taxes to service debt. This capitalism, or was Jefferson correct when stating a central bank issuing the public currency is a greater menace to the liberties of the people than a standing army? Ted Anderson, I'm placing a free silver dollar in a book that explains our monetary system. Call for your copy, 800-686-2237. It's time to understand the system. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
Exploring the original UFO witness of the modern era, Kenneth Arnold, and the strange Maury Island case and a lot of the other things with Curt Sutherly, with Gene and Chris on the Paracast. Okay, let's just check a couple other things with regard to Arnold. Did he ever see another UFO? Someone asked that question in our forums.
I don't think he ever did. I think that one sighting was pretty much it.
Probably all he wanted.
That's exactly what I was thinking. He probably didn't want to see anything else after that, and if he had, he probably wouldn't have reported it. You know,
did he have regrets over reporting that thing?
No, he didn't have any regrets about reporting it or filing the official report with the Air Force. He felt that this was his duty. This was his responsibility to his country. It had nothing to do with whether these things were some new type of aircraft developed by another country, or whether they were extraterrestrial or whatever. This was something that, regardless of the origin, it was something that he needed to do because it was completely outlandish. It was completely strange. It may have been a threat to national security. Nobody knew. So he needed to report all of this. And when he investigated the whole Maury Island thing, I think the motivation there was exactly the same. I think once he started, even though he was panicked half the time, he brought in Smith because he literally felt like he was out of his depth with the investigation. He was not a professional investigator. He admitted that repeatedly. He just needed to get to the bottom of this because it could somehow have an impact on national security, on the country that he loved, and the country that he loved up until the day he died, I'm sure.
Now, everything about this case, as I'm saying, reeks of some kind of military intervention, and maybe the deaths of those two military officers was just an unfortunate accident.
Well, according to the official Army Air Force investigation, the crash of the bomber was an accident. The series of events, the chronology of the events, it all just stacked up so strangely. I mean, you had these guys going. Arnold goes there. He brings in Smith. They discover the room is being bugged or monitored in some fashion. They can't find a bugging device. Yet the local press keeps calling them. You have Chrisman and Dahl, who are obviously telling a story, maybe a tall tale, that they seem to be trying to force Arnold and Smith into believing, or at least Arnold in any case.
Well, of course, you can look at the elaborate conspiracy here that they first give this information to Palmer, maybe not even knowing he'd contact Arnold, but maybe a fortuitous circumstance, in order to discredit this crazy UFO mystery before it got out of hand.
Well, you brought up an interesting point. I think Arnold was a pawn. He was a fortuitous pawn in whatever game was being played. And I'm not sure that they were trying to discredit the UFO mystery. I think maybe somebody or some agency or agencies saw the whole UFO phenomenon. I think that's still the case today. I think they saw it as a way to kind of manipulate things, to create a smokescreen for other activities. You go back to this business about the slag. Now, supposedly this slag was radioactive, yet there doesn't seem to have been any indication from anybody that was radioactive. That's part of the rumor that flew around about this. This Major Sander takes him to this smelting plant, takes him directly to one pile of slag, which looks remarkably like what Chrisman had in his possession. But he doesn't let them look at anything else. He hustles them back into the car and gets them away from the smelting plant, in opposition to Arnold's objections. He was like, let me look at some of the other stuff. No, we don't have time. Let's leave. That's kind of what went on there. The whole thing smacks of some sort of game that was being played, and even today it's just baffling. It's completely baffling. What was going on? Did this have something to do with the early Atomic Energy Commission? Nobody really seems to know.
Well, it's almost as if you look into a lot of the stuff going on in the early days of the UFO field, you find all these curious military connections.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they were all over the place for a while, and just, I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, we're so far removed from that era now. I mean, we're now in 2012, and we're talking 1947, 1948 time frame, and just like with Roswell. I mean, you can look at that. You can investigate until you go berserk, and you never can quite pin anything down. I mean, the sense is that something happened, and that, in fact, it's kind of interesting because the whole Roswell scenario occurred shortly after the Kenneth Arnold sighting and right around the time of the Maury Island business. So you have all of these events in play, and you have the military first releasing a report saying that the Roswell thing was a crashed flying saucer, a crashed flying disc. And then they immediately recant. And you get a story that this was a high weather balloon. And it just smacks of almost like a double cover-up. Like they threw out one thing, then they threw out something else. And by the time they were finished, people were so confused they didn't know what. And that's the sense you get in Maury Island, too.
Well, not to denigrate the possibility of UFO reality, but you have to wonder if UFOs were not occasionally used as an excuse to cover up something else that was going on. Oh, tell them it's a flying saucer. We're not going to let them know about our secret weapons studies or secret aircraft, the things we're doing with those scientists that came from Nazi Germany.
Yeah, exactly. And, the whole UFO mystery, the whole flying saucer mystery, as it exploded in 1947, would have been viewed by, I think, people in the right places as a way to obscure the truth about other things they've been working on, as you suggest. And I think that's been the case down through the years. I think in many instances we've had episodes where people have investigated flying saucer or UFO phenomena, and maybe it was really something else that occurred, or maybe there was something staged to distract attention from something else that might have been happening nearby. Again, you don't know. We can only speculate, and it seems like the people that really do start digging into these things either tend to clam up after a while, or they just simply disappear.
Well, Curt, no, I do remember reading that Arnold really became a celebrity after this, and it impacted his business. And at one point, I think he said if he saw like a 10-story building fly into the air, he'd never say a word about it, because it seems like, on his routes that he would fly between cities, people would find out that he was going to arrive, and he would attract these huge crowds. And the notoriety must have been quite disconcerting for him. Did he ever mention any regrets about all this?
No, the only regret he posed was to say that he just simply didn't talk to people about it anymore. That's when I talked to him on the phone. He immediately tried to brush me off when he's like, "Well, who are you?" And I identified myself as a freelance writer and said I wanted to talk to him about this because it was the anniversary of his sighting, and I'm just very fortunate he didn't hang up on me, because that was his inclination, and that's when I kind of segued into the whole aviation enthusiasm thing, and we talked aircraft for a few minutes, and he relaxed enough to realize I was not calling him to simply harass him or to write some story that would have been offensive to him. I mean, he had put up with enough of that over the years from different, not just from the media, but I think from the public. It's with any celebrity. I mean, if you gain some notoriety and you go sit down in a restaurant or someplace, I'm sure the man probably would want to take his wife out every once in a while, and people would recognize him and they'd want to talk about the flying saucer sighting. That would have been a natural inclination on people that surrounded him, except maybe the people in his immediate environment who might have actually worked to protect him. But anybody that knew him only casually or didn't know him but recognized him from photos would have hounded the guy. So yeah, I'm sure he would have been burned out by it. What was kind of funny was, I think my interview with him, it was published in a short version first in the Lebanon Daily News, where I was working part-time, and then a longer version ended up in Saga magazine, or Saga's UFO report. Once that came out, then investigators started to approach Arnold again about his story and about going to conventions. And I believe, if I remember correctly, it was a couple of years later that he ended up becoming the keynote speaker at one of the large UFO conferences. And Gene, you might remember more of that than I do.
Well, this was the International UFO Congress, which, of course, is the predecessor of the one that we were at just a couple of weeks back, Chris and I. So isn't that amazing? We have Curt Sutherly joining Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
We also have swag. We have all these exclusive Paracast things that you can buy. We've got 60 or so different items, and entails T-shirts, sleeves for notebook computers, iPad cases, mouse pads, the Paracast Jumbo tote bag, all sorts of T-shirts and jackets and stuff like that for men and women. We have a Paracast aluminum water bottle. All this stuff, you go to store.theparacast.com, store.theparacast.com. What makes it special is that the items are the best quality, great T-shirts, fabrics, and they have our official logo on them. That's what makes them special, in multiple sizes and colors. We even have stuff for children, stuff for women, stuff for men. We have all sorts of sizes, like small up to X large. A lot of good stuff. That's the swag from the Paracast. You go to store.theparacast.com, stop by, and take a shopping tour.
We all know that Berkey Water Purification Systems are the most trusted name in water filtration. As an authorized Berkey dealer for over 6 years and serving thousands of satisfied customers, the Berkey Guy offers amazing specials for Berkey Water Filtration Systems. The Berkey Light Systems include a set of self-sterilizing and recleanable black purification elements that purify water by removing chlorine, pathogenic bacteria, cysts, and parasites to non-detectable levels and remove harmful chemicals such as herbicides and pesticides. Order the Berkey Light System today, complete with 2 black Berkey elements for only $231, and the Berkey Guy will ship your order free of charge. With the purchase of a Berkey Light, the Berkey Guy is also offering a set of fluoride and arsenic filters for only $39.99. That's over 30% off the retail price. Call the Berkey Guy at 1-877-886-3653. That's 1-877-886-3653. Or order online at GoBerkey.com. That's GoBerkey.com today.
What is the most abundant resource on Earth? Water. It's essential for sustaining life.
but it's not always the most available. When disaster strikes, water quickly vanishes from store shelves, like it did during 9/11, Katrina, Japan, and in Joplin. 3 days without water and your body begins to shut down. Don't risk being without an abundant supply of water when the next disaster hits. Get a FlowJack hand well pump. The affordable FlowJack drops right into almost any well and is easy to install without having to remove the existing pump, giving you immediate access to plenty of cool, clean water. You could risk your family's health on a limited supply of stored water, or you could be prepared with the reliable, affordable FlowJack Backup Hand Pump Kit, delivered to your door for only $3.99 complete. See how it works at FlowJack.com, spelled FLOJAK.com. Be sure to spell FLOJAK.com or call 855-4FlowJack. That's 855-435-6525. Proudly made in America. FlowJack hand well pumps. Peace of mind in a box.
Don't answer it.
If fear strikes your heart when the phone rings, knowing it may be another bill collector, it's time for you to call Zero Debt in 90 days. 800-477-9256. Settlements, bankruptcy, and attorneys are not the answer and may end up costing you up to 10 times more than necessary. Listen, if you're already in debt, does it make sense to get buried in another payment plan? Zero Debt in 90 days gets you out of debt in 90 days guaranteed, without a payment plan and without attorneys or going to court. Get the fastest relief from debt on the planet when you call 800-477-9256. If you have debt with the IRS, credit cards, student loans, or a foreclosure, we can help at Zero Debt in 90 days, and we are the only organization to provide written guarantees on the results. Go to ZeroDebtGuaranteed.com. That's ZeroDebtGuaranteed.com. Or call now for free information. 800-477-9256. That's 800-477-9256.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And if you'd like to catch up on past episodes, we have hundreds of shows for you to download direct from theparacast.com. That's theparacast.com. Or check us out at iTunes.
We have Curt Sutherly exploring Kenneth Arnold and all the strange things going on in the early UFO field in the 1940s and 1950s. Now, at one time, Jim Moseley tried to get Kenneth Arnold to speak. This was at a national UFO conference meeting for, I think, 1967. And Arnold agreed, but supposedly Arnold had moved to Australia for several years. Or at least that's supposedly what they claimed. Is that true?
Well, I'm laughing at that because, and I don't know if you remember this, but when I first started looking for Arnold, I asked around, and you're one of the people that I contacted inquiring as to Arnold's whereabouts.
Right, and I probably said Australia.
That's exactly what you said, and I'm like, what? And I thought that doesn't sound likely, but I didn't know, so I made some other inquiries, and people were telling me that he was dead, and then I simply picked up the phone book. Well, actually, I didn't pick up the phone book. I just simply picked up the telephone, called directory assistance for Idaho, and I got his phone number, and he was still living at the old home in his home state of Idaho. That's where the conversation started. In fact, I think I mentioned to him on the phone, I said, you're supposed to be dead, and he started chuckling. But I do remember that. I remember you telling me that he was in Australia.
Maybe that was a cover story just to get everybody off his back.
So that was your cover story. You're saying that you were privy to...
No, I wasn't. I think also, as a matter of fact, that year they tried to get Ray Palmer to come to New York to go to the National UFO Conference. And understand, Ray was crippled. He had a severe spinal condition. He was basically a hunchback. Very short, very difficult for him to walk. I guess he could drive around in a car. But I know when I met him in the 60s, when I met Ray Palmer, he walked slowly and haltingly. He wasn't all that healthy. And he died, I think, about a decade later in his middle-late 60s, which I guess wasn't unusual for that era. But that's where you go with Kenneth Arnold. So
when you talked to Palmer, did he mention anything about Kenneth Arnold?
I didn't ask him. I only talked to Palmer a few times. And the thing is here, with Ray Palmer, you don't think so much as Kenneth Arnold. You don't think so much of Maury Island or the book The Coming of the Saucers. You think about Richard Shaver, the guy who said he'd been down there to the inside the caverns to meet the Deros and Tiros, and his connection, all the stories he told. Now, very interesting about Ray Palmer. Ray Palmer, of course, I always wondered about him. He seemed pretty straight arrow with me. And then I met a former colleague of his, Otto Bender, famous science fiction author and editor. This was back in the 60s and 70s.
I remember the name, yeah.
Right, and Otto said to me, Palmer's a really nice guy, but he's just a storyteller. Don't take anything he says seriously. He just says that for the sake of selling magazines. That his core beliefs may be things that you didn't know about. As much as he said, this is what I believe, he was basically just writing to start the argument or the debate or sell magazines and books. I don't know.
Well, he didn't have to make too much up with the whole Maury Island thing.
No, he didn't. He just basically had to take the words and put them together on paper.
Yeah. Yeah, the letter that Chrisman sent him when he said they were harbor patrolmen, and it turned out they were no such thing. They were simply operating a small salvage craft. And obviously, maybe, who knows, maybe Chrisman sensed that Palmer was a kindred spirit insofar as spinning tall tales, and he figured, well, this is a good guy to approach with this story, and I can get something started here. But again, that leads back to what was it he was trying to start? What was it he was trying to embellish, and for what reason?
Well, Palmer might have been the right person at the wrong time. Remember, this is the time of Fate magazine. This is the time where Palmer had been pretty controversial in the sci-fi field because a lot of the traditional people in the science fiction field basically hated Palmer's guts because of this crazy Shaver story. Palmer was publishing science fiction stories of the era. This was a magazine that was the original science fiction magazine founded by Hugo Gernsback in the 1920s, the first sci-fi magazine on the planet. Many of the famous science fiction stories originated there. As I mentioned, Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote one or two of the last John Carter stories for Amazing Stories.
I did not know that. That is very interesting.
It's a part of history. If you look at the final John Carter stories, which were basically short novels, you'd see that they originally were published in Amazing Stories, and the editor at the time was Ray Palmer. So he had this influence and this confluence of events that put him in the early part of the UFO and paranormal research eras. Very strange, Ray Palmer. Almost more interesting in that sense than Kenneth Arnold, who was the victim, whereas Palmer may have been the purveyor, the perpetrator in some ways. Who knows?
I think he was the medium by which they were able to perpetrate, if it was a hoax, and it seems like it was a hoax on Maury Island.
Well, nowadays I think the general opinion in UFO research is that Kenneth Arnold had some kind of genuine sighting, whatever it might have been, even if it was some kind of test aircraft, and that Ray Palmer was telling tall tales, and Kenneth Arnold was kind of sucked into a hoax. And that was it. Something really crazy was going on Maury Island. But in the end of the day, it was a bad hoax because two people died. And maybe then Edward Ruppelt was right, although he blamed Palmer, which wasn't right.
Maybe more than two people. Maybe Paul Lance, the local reporter, maybe his death had something to do with all this, too. And supposedly Ted Morello, the UPI reporter, his career kind of fell apart. I guess his personal life fell apart for a long time after that, although I understand he was able to kind of resurrect his career many years later as a United Nations reporter, of all things.
Of course, we have all the crazy legends over the years of premature deaths as a result of being involved in UFO research. We talk about, for example, Morris Jessup, who wrote a book called The Case for the UFO, then The Expanding Case for the UFO, and then supposedly killed himself in Florida some years later after those books came out. Yep. We have Dr. James McDonald, who evidently died of natural causes, but some people say it's not so natural. And then, Chris, as you and I remember, during our recording of the Paracast of 2 weeks ago at the International UFO Congress, we were talking about people who suffered from strange cancer infections, virulent cancers, for no reason at the same time, with the only connection that they were involved in UFO research.
Yeah, I've seen several articles recently about Andrew Breitbart. Is that his name?
Andrew Breitbart.
Yep.
Sure, he was a conservative columnist, activist, muckraking kind of guy, very controversial, but he died young. But they said he had a heart condition, so maybe not so strange.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting how people that gain a certain controversial notoriety, especially within the UFO realm. Scott Rogo, of course, is another one. How they have these just kind of weird demises.
Who was a small-time publisher that he put out a lot of trade paperbacks having to do with black helicopters. I think he also reprinted Keel's book as well. For crying out loud, his novel that wasn't a novel.
Jim Keith is another one that comes to mind. He stumbles coming off the stage at Burning Man and is dead 2 days later from a weird infection or something, I think, in the hospital.
This is something we should explore in our remaining 2 segments, the strange aftermath of people who get involved in UFO research, those who knew too much.
It might not be dead air.
Well, not to coin a phrase. With Gene and Chris, we have Curt Sutherly. You're in
the Paracast.
Are you tired of searching for great talk radio?
Something more important.
Search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter, and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKE soft.com. lemkesoft.com. LEMKE soft.com.
Have you ever seen a U.S. postage stamp featuring Abraham Lincoln, Ben Franklin, or George Washington? If you're into stamp collecting, you know it's a fun, affordable hobby. America's leading stamp dealer is the Mystic Stamp Company, and they want you to have their free 140-page color catalog. Go to MysticStampAd.com, the website of the Mystic Stamp Company. Serving stamp collectors since 1923, Mystic Stamp is well known in the industry for its experience, superior customer service, and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Go to MysticStampAd.com to request your free 140-page U.S. stamp color catalog, packed with collecting tips, special offers, color photos, and over 4,600 available stamps. Call 800-433-7811 or go to MysticStampAd.com. That's 800-433-7811 and ask for your free U.S. stamp catalog or MysticStampAd.com. Mystic Stamp Company, America's leading stamp dealer.
Healthy soils grow healthy plants. So before you plant your survival garden this year, is your soil healthy? Maximize your crisis garden soil with EM1 from Terraganics. EM1 Organic Soil Conditioner, Fertilizer Amendment, and Compost Accelerant provides healthier gardens and faster, efficient garden composting. EM1 from Terraganics.com quickly improves soil structure by increasing nutrient availability and converting organic matter into soil humus. This improves seed germination and root growth, improves plant quality, size, color, flavor, nutrient value of fruits and vegetables, and improves shelf life. And when rain is not in the forecast, no worries. EM1 improves moisture retention in soils, helping reduce drought stress. Just like you prepare all else, prepare your crisis garden for maximum yields with EM1 from Terraganics.com. Order now at TERAGANIX.com or call toll-free 866-369-3678. That's 866-369-3678. Terraganics. Life's getting better.
So you're a maker of something. Woodcrafts, fishing lures, glass designs, jewelry, purses, perfumes, goat's milk soap. Whatever it is, you made it here in America. Now you're eager for people to buy your products right here locally, instead of buying competing products made on the other side of the world, right? Then you need to check out localmakers.com. Support America. Buy and sell locally at localmakers.com. Doesn't matter if you're a home-based business or a major manufacturer. Localmakers.com offers an easy way to connect with customers within your local community, as well as across the U.S. simply by entering a zip code. And there's no cost to join. So if you're a maker who needs buyers, go to localmakers.com and stock your products on one of our shelves. Localmakers.com, promoting, preserving, and supporting your neighbors' manufacturing businesses.
This is Hilly Rose, and I hope that you do listen to the Paracast because you will learn a great deal about the paranormal.
Curt Sutherly joining Gene and Chris in the Paracast, and we've gotten into this story about people involved in UFO research, and they die before their time for whatever reason, maybe because of cancer, brain tumors. Barney Hill, how old was he? What, 50s, early 60s when he died?
I believe he was like maybe mid-50s, something like that, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, he would be another one. That's his wife, Betty. I was in touch with her for a good many years. In fact, she used to feed me all kinds of information during the 70s and early 80s about UFO activities up in New Hampshire, where she was still living. And she, based on the letters that I had received from her, she missed her husband up until the day she died. But that whole scenario with their sighting and the Fuller's book, The Interrupted Journey, dealing with all of it, I mean, that started something that I think she was able to handle a whole lot better than Barney was. I don't think he was ever able to really come to grips with what happened or what they thought happened to them, the alleged abduction. I don't know. She was my sense of Betty Hill, from a couple of brief phone conversations and from the many letters that I received from her, was that she was a very tough-minded woman, and that nothing was going to push her into the afterlife any sooner than she needed to go. But yeah, her husband, I don't think he really was able to handle it in any real fashion. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if that didn't have something to do with his early death.
Well, is it emotional then, all this, or did he suffer some kind of external infection?
People, yeah, I think for all of these people, the emotion about, I mean, it's pretty well known today that with illness, your state of mind has a lot to do with your mental. I mean, your mental health has a lot to do with your physical health. If you're in poor mental health, if you have a negative attitude about a lot of things, if you're just constantly worrying over things and stressing over things, obviously it's going to put you into poor health, and it can simply push you into an early death. I think it's why in a lot of cases, and we're kind of digressing here, but where you have, I'll give you a personal example. My aunt and uncle, Aunt Joanne and Uncle Ron, John Paul, I should say, the last name is Weatherholtz. He died in his mid-40s of cancer. It came on very suddenly, very unexpected. They later thought it might have had something to do with radon disease in the house. But he died quickly, and Joanne, within a year, died as well.
That's not uncommon, that the spouse doesn't always survive. And we think, of course, of June Carter Cash and Johnny Cash, died within months of each other.
Yeah, she literally did not want to live without her husband, without John Paul. They were that close. I used to run around with them a lot. We'd go to antique places, we'd go to country markets, that kind of thing, and I wasn't that much younger than they were, and so instead of them being an aunt and an uncle, we were like close friends. And when he died, it affected me strongly, and I saw how it hit my aunt Joanne. I mean, it tore her apart. And I've seen this. We're all at this point in life now where we've had enough experiences like this that you kind of see it, and it does say a lot about the state of the mind and how it affects your physical health. In the case of Barney Hill, I really think that this early episode with this UFO abduction or whatever it was that really happened, this affected him in such a way that I think it pushed him to an early grave. I think he might still be alive today had this not happened. It's probably almost like getting bit by a scorpion.
Well, we don't want to get into the raw details of that. Now, let's look into opinions here. We're talking to you mostly as a journalist here, trying to put pieces together, trying to figure out about Kenneth Arnold's experiences in the UFO field, about what happened. Personally, looking at all this stuff, do you go along with the fact that maybe this Fred Lee Chrisman character was somebody in some way connected with the military, and whether with their sanction or without their sanction was doing something he felt they wanted done?
I don't think he was connected to the military. I think he was connected to the intelligence community. A big difference there. I mean, you have intelligence services within the military, but the feeling I got through the conversation with Arnold, and he didn't really get into that a whole lot, but digging into the various records related to all of this and taking a close look at the principal players, the feeling that I have is that Fred Lee Chrisman was somebody who was involved with the intelligence community, probably as a mid-level operative. He was there pushing an agenda for whatever agency he was working for, maybe the CIA. The CIA was kind of in its infancy at that point. The big question is, what was he doing? What was the whole point of this, creating this story? Or did he just like to do this kind of thing? Was he just kind of a nut? Maybe he was both. Maybe he was working for the intelligence community. He was kind of a nut, kind of an oddball. Okay, maybe he was kind of a nut. Maybe he was both part of the intelligence community and somebody that liked to throw nonsense out into the open and see who would jump at it.
He was an unofficial loose cannon then.
Yeah, he probably was, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying about Richard Doty earlier. He almost seemed like he fits into that same mold. He was a bit of a loose cannon, I think.
Curt, I have a quick question for you. Yeah. I seem to remember reading Ken Thomas's book about the Maury Island incident. That I think he mentions in there that Chrisman was allegedly involved in some scheme to uncover Japanese gold in the South Pacific in the Philippines or someplace that they thought was buried in a cavern, and he was somehow associated with the search for that. Do you have any information on that?
No, that's a new one on me. I mean, I had not heard that story before. So run this by me again. Chrisman supposedly was involved in a search for lost Japanese gold in the South.
Yeah, for hidden Japanese gold. Now, I could be mistaken, but it's been probably 6 years since I read the book. But I do seem to recall, that there was there's some, tantalizing hints here and there that he was involved in some search effort to try to recover this gold after the Japanese were out.
Now, that definitely piques my interest. I'm going to have to dig into that a little bit and see if I can find something out. And maybe on a future show, if I can come up with any, we can discuss it. But, I had not heard this before. But, again, that actually, based on what I know of this character through these various stories, that sounds like something that he would have been...
That he would be involved in.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? I mean, there's bound to be tons of sunken treasure out there, and search for Japanese gold would not be all that far-fetched.
Yeah.
I'm sure the CIA or whatever agency he might have been working for would have been really happy to get their hands on something like that.
Yeah, I would think it was probably the OSS back then. That was pre the National Security Agency and the CIA and the Division of Army Air Force into the Air Force.
When did this supposedly take place? Around 49 or something?
I'm not sure. I don't remember if it was before. I think it may have been just before 46 maybe. Or it could have been just after. I'm not sure. Again, I'm a little fuzzy on the details. I'll have to drag out and dust off my copy of Ken's book. But he did a pretty interesting job trying to get more background information on him. He's quite the shadowy character. There's no question about it. Do we know what happened to him? How did he finally die? What did he do in the 60s and 70s? Do you have any indication?
He, let me see here. Let me dig through my own notes, which are stacked around me. Let's see what I do seem to have something down here about his final demise.
As we speak, we have Curt Sutherly and showing you what spontaneous radio is all about. Curt came here with all his notes, probably packed in his living room or his bedroom there at his home in a secret location.
I'm sitting on my living room floor with notes all surrounding me.
Okay.
So, he died in 1975, supposedly of natural causes. And that's as much as I was able to dig up on that. So what they mean by natural causes, I mean, did he just die of old age? Did he die of cancer or heart attack?
How old was he?
he had to have been, I'd say, in his 80s by that time.
Oh, he was an old codger. We've got Curt Sutherly, who's not an old codger, at least not yet. With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
The GCN Radio Network, providing the world with hard-hitting talk radio. GCN. Great talk radio starts here.
If you want to get your website online and you need reliable service, first-class service at the lowest possible price, there's only one place to go. Well, DreamHost has a special promotion with our show where they'll offer you unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, one-click web apps such as WordPress, 24/7 support. You can save over $55. You want to know how? Go to dreamhost.com/radio, dreamhost.com/radio.
For 58 years, Fate has provided true reports of the strange and unknown. Fate brings you the latest in all aspects of the paranormal, like angels and miracles, psychic phenomena, ghosts, UFOs, and much, much more. To receive your complimentary Fate magazine, call now at 1-800-728-2730 or visit their website at www.fatemag.com. That's 1-800-728-2730. What are you waiting for? Your fate awaits.
Are you having trouble paying your mortgage? Maybe your mortgage loan is upside down or in foreclosure. Maybe the bank already foreclosed on you. Don't sit around being a victim of bank fraud. Fight back. We have the tools to help you fight back. Here's how. Go to inspectoraudit.com and click on the GCN radio special. Order a summary audit. Find the real truth about your loan.
Maybe like me, you'll find your bank loan was paid off already. Maybe, like me, you'll find your bank defrauded you at the closing. And maybe, like me, you will go after them.
Did you know 78% of home loans in the last 10 years violated consumer credit laws? We should not let the banks get away with this fraud. Go to inspectoraudit.com and click on the GCN radio special. Order a summary audit today and find the truth about your mortgage loan. That's inspectoraudit.com or call 855-373-4948. That's 1-855-373-4948.
That's what it sounds like when a burglar kicks in the door of a dark house that looks like no one is home. Don't let your home be the next target. Make it look like someone is home watching television with fake TV. Fake TV is a small electronic device that makes the same light as a real television. So from outside, it looks like someone is home watching TV. Fake TV plugs in just like a lamp on a timer, but is far more convincing to burglars. Fake TV deters burglars, costs far less than an alarm, and is highly recommended by numerous police departments. Use it anytime you're away from home. To order your fake TV for only $34.95, go to faketv.com. or call 1-877-5-FAKE-TV. Each additional fake TV is only $29.95, so get one for you and one for a loved one for safety, security, and peace of mind for both of you. Call 877-5-FAKE-TV or go to faketv.com. faketv.com, the burglar deterrent.
Iodine protection packs from hempusa.org are now in stock for immediate delivery worldwide. Our iodine protection packs include microplant powder, green life kelp, red palm oil, and our clear roll-on iodine that will feed the body the iodine it needs. All iodine protection packs are in stock. Save you money and ship for free in all 50 states. Visit hempusa.org or call 908-691-2608 today. HempUSA.org has a revolutionary wonder food for detoxing the body and rebuilding the immune system. Microplant powder can help unclog arteries and soften heart valves while removing heavy metals, virus, fungus, bacteria, and parasites. Plus, it cleans and purifies the blood, lungs, stomach, and colon. Keep your body clean with microplant powder. Visit us at HempUSA.org or call 908-691-2608 today.
This is Jerome Clark, author of the UFO Encyclopedia and other books. You're listening to the Paracast.
We have Curt Sutherly for another segment on the Paracast with Gene and Chris, and we're talking about Fred Lee Chrisman. And as you mentioned, Chrisman must have been, what, in his 60s when Maury Island occurred?
Probably it might have been a little younger. I'd say probably in his 50s, late 40s, early 50s when that occurred.
Okay.
And you know what? Now that I think about it, Arnold never really did give any indication of his age. I got the feeling that Dahl was probably a fair amount younger than Chrisman. And he described Dahl as being he was like 6'2", a lumberjack build, kind of a strapping guy. So you get the sense that he might have been like in his late 20s, early 30s, and Chrisman a good 10 or 15 years older. So that was.
I'm not sure if Kurt's aware of this, but my father was in the Coast Guard in Puget Sound in 46 and 47. And I remember a couple of times when we were kids, he told us a story. I remember one time in particular around the dinner table of getting a new radar unit on their cutter and detecting objects that seemed to be going in and out of Puget Sound at hypersonic speed. And later on, after I got more involved in this whole field, I remember bouncing that question off him and asking him, "Hey, do you remember when you told us that story?" And he totally denied it. He actually got kind of nervous and said, "I never told that."
So he was saying that the objects were diving in and out of Puget Sound?
They were going in and out of Puget Sound and the Straits of Juan de Fuca, yeah.
Well, that's not unheard of in the annals of UFO history either. I mean, Ivan Sanderson called them undersea, flying objects. And you have that kind of story surfacing all the time of people seeing things and discs and various objects that would simply dive beneath the surface of the ocean at some place, or maybe dive into a harbor and not be seen again, or maybe they would simply track them. I guess there were a number of cases. Keel was into this. He dug in a number of stories where various navies, I believe over in Scandinavia, the Navy over there was constantly tracking strange submerged objects moving at high speed with sonar, and they would pursue this. They thought these were Russian submarines, but they never could prove it. But in many cases, these objects were going too fast to be Russian submarines. And our Navy they're not going to be quick to admit it, but there have been cases where they've tracked various submersibles as well that are moving at high speed. So, I don't know. You start pulling one thread, and all kinds of other things start to unravel, and you've got this whole mess of strange mysteries.
And you have to wonder in those days what percentage of UFO cases were really caused by some kind of government experiment.
You're talking about back in the 40s?
Definitely back in the 40s and early 50s, when so many things were being tried, as they say.
Either the things were being tried, or the fact that we were trying things, such as earlier atomic tests, was attracting attention from somewhere. I mean, we talk about all this, and I'm kind of guilty of this too. I tend to be fairly pragmatic, despite my interest in all this stuff. And I look at this and I think there's a rational explanation for most unexplained phenomena. But when you get to the bottom of it, in some cases there is no rational explanation other than to assume or to come to the conclusion that we're dealing with something that's either extra-dimensional or extraterrestrial. And for instance, I think of the business with the green fireballs in the Southwest in 1947. There were months that went by. Actually, it was 1947, 48, I think all the way into 49, when the military set up what they called Project Twinkle. And they were attempting to photograph these objects, but they were never having a lot of luck, because they'd see these strange, brilliant green meteors in one location. They'd set up their scopes, and these objects would stop appearing in that location and start appearing somewhere else. And you get the feeling, because of the location, because of the proximity of these objects with some of the nuclear testing that was going on at the time, that these were objects that were curious about what we were doing.
Klaatu was coming here from wherever.
Exactly. Except he didn't land on the White House lawn or in Central Park or wherever it was he was supposed to have landed. He was just simply flying over and checking things out. But of course, there's also the idea that when we started to set off atomic tests, did we create a rift? Did we fracture some sort of a barrier that allowed things to come and go? Maybe, I don't know. You can speculate all day and all night about these things, and you're kind of left, with an empty sheet of paper in your lap.
And that may be the other question to ask here. What are we left with the life story of Kenneth Arnold, who got himself accidentally into the UFO mystery because he reported what he saw. And maybe if he shut up, we wouldn't hear about it in the same way. Maybe look at it that way. If Kenneth Arnold had never said, I saw something strange, would the UFO mystery have gotten so much attention?
I think it would have. I think it would have taken off with somebody else. But as it happened, he was the person that first brought it to the public attention, and it was circumstance. I mean, he happened to see this. Maybe somebody else had the same sighting. Maybe the people he mentioned in his report that there had been an airliner flying 5 or 6 miles behind him off his port wing. The objects were also in the port side, meaning the left side of the aircraft. Maybe the people in that airliner saw it as well, but they didn't report it. It could have happened the other way. It could have been him, like you said, that kept his mouth shut, and maybe the pilot of that airliner might have reported the sighting, and this whole thing would have taken on an entirely different tone.
Or nobody would have reported this thing at all.
Exactly. I mean, they might have all kept quiet, but again, then you had Smith on July 4th reporting his sighting, but I believe that he and his co-pilot, I think the guy's name was Wendell Stevens, they only reported it because Arnold had already come forward with his report.
So that he opened the door. He's the big door opener for all this stuff. That he made it acceptable to see strange things and report those strange things and maybe not be laughed at or not be laughed at so severely.
And his report today is still officially classified as unexplained by the military. That is, they've never tried to close the door on that. They've never tried.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is still unexplained. They've never tried to come up with some kind of cock and bull story about this guy seeing nonsense. That's why when you said earlier about the report of him supposedly having seen a mirage, or them trying to make it sound like he saw a mirage, I had never heard this before because I know that the report is still considered unexplained.
That's something thrown into the Wikipedia entry. And, of course, lots of people can edit those things. Now, in terms of Maury Island, isn't that officially regarded as a hoax, though?
I think the official FBI report on it was that this was a hoax, and that the players, in this case Chrisman and Dahl, were perpetrating some kind of a hoax, and that Arnold and Smith and indirectly Ray Palmer were just caught up in this hoax. The writer, I can't remember the name of the field agent who wrote the report at the time when it was initially released, when it was released under the Freedom of Information Act. It was redacted, it was edited, and I had to literally fill in the blanks to put the names of the principal players in. I simply was able to count spaces to do that. If it was Fred Chrisman, simply counted the spaces out. Yeah, that fits. And it all made sense when I was done with it. And now I guess the whole report is out there for anybody to read in its entirety.
Now let's look at what you're doing. Okay, you wrote the book, UFO Mysteries, A Reporter Seeks the Truth, back about 2001. What are you doing these days?
What am I doing these days? Talking to you on telephone so that you can broadcast this to your listeners all over the world.
Okay, you're still at it more or less, although no new books on UFOs are in your horizon. You've got, of course, science fiction story you're working on.
Yeah, I've been working on a novel for several years now, and I'm getting better at it. I've had to refine my technique. One thing I discovered, and I'm sure you understand this, is that I was a journalist for many, many years, and journalism became second nature to me.
But fiction is something that's a different world, because I've done that, and I've lived in that world. Of course, our friend Chris O'Brien has a site called Our Strange Planet, OurStrangePlanet.com, and I think finally we're going to start revising that site, Chris, right?
Yep.
By the way, there are lots of ways to contact us here at the Paracast. You can write us news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. You can send us a tweet. The Paracast. What else can we be? The Paracast on Twitter. Curt Sutherly, thanks for joining us this week on the Paracast.
Thank you for having me, Gene. It's been fun.
The Paracast, featuring Gene Steinberg and Christopher O'Brien, is a copyrighted presentation of Making the Impossible, Incorporated. Tune in next week for a new adventure in the Paracast.